Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call the library preliminary budget hearing to order. If everybody will rise for the invocation, and Commissioner Kitchen will give that to us.
Well, Lord, again, we thank you to be able to gather here today to conduct the business of our community. Lord, I do pray that particularly during the budget season that you would give us discernment, that you would give us wisdom and guidance. Lord, that you would give us patience with each other, knowing that at least the five of us up here, as we make these decisions, all have the best interest of our community at heart. You know that. We just might come at it from different directions and angles, so we just ask that you would open our eyes to what each other is talking and expressing, and that you might give us a sense of comfort that comes from knowing that you're in the midst of all of it. Lord, you tell us in your word, unless you build the city, the workers build it in vain. And we don't want to build our community in vain. We want you at the center of it. So I ask that you'd watch over everything we say and do today. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Everybody face the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
This is a preliminary budget hearing for the Citrus County Special Library District Board this 28th day of July, 2021. In attendance are Chairman Scott Carnahan, First Vice Chairman Ronald D. Kitchen Jr., Second Vice Chairman Ruthie Schleba, Commissioner Jeff Kennard, Commissioner Holly Davis, Inverness Councilman David Ryan, and County Administrator Randy Albert.
Thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Oliver.
Okay, for the new benefit of the new commissioners, the library board is composed of 5 county commissioners, a representative of the city of Inverness, a representative of the city of Crystal River. The representative from Crystal River had another commitment that they couldn't get out of. The purpose of this particular group is to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners as it relates to what the millage should be set at on the budget. So if we can go into the presentation, I think this one's pretty easy. Famous last words. Okay, next slide. This shows you the millage over time of what it has been and what is being proposed. It was 3.3217. We're proposing 0.3207. Next slide. This is how personnel services, obviously salaries and things go up. Change of 123,732. Operating expenses are up 161. Capital outlays down. That varies from year to year. I know that there are 2 libraries that Mr. Head would like to renovate as we get towards the future, and we're working on that. But that will be down the road. The total change in that budget is 10.9% overall. Next slide. So we are recommending that the library budget be set at 3.207 or 0.3207, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And Mr. Head is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, Councilman, any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Kitchen.
you know you're going to be saying that a lot today, right? Now, actually, I want to say, and I'll save all these other comments for later, but just the library is a good place to start. My recollection is they could have a maximum millage of 0.33. That's what it used to be, set by statute. So that's still, so they're still below the maximum.
Correct.
Also, according to this, it's a couple of, million or so more coming in because we're letting them keep their millage up there close. I remember we did that because a couple of years ago, when we told everybody to cut back and nobody would, the library department was the first people to step up and did that. And they were the ones that cut way back below the millage. So, Mr. Chair, I have no problem at all with recommending that we move forward with the proposed 0.3207 for those reasons.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilman?
This represents a rollback rate, right?
No, it doesn't. It represents the consensus of the board when the parameters were adopted for the budget were rollback plus 3% plus FRS were the parameters that were adopted. And it is within those parameters.
Okay.
Also, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
And also, just a side note, we kind of set out fire, if I remember this correctly, we kind of set out fire and we set out the library as the exception to the pure rollback for the very reasons we talked about, where they took it on the chin so much in the past that this was kind of a let it go for a few years like this to get it up.
Right.
So I think this is just kind of making them whole again from where we were.
Okay, any other comments, commissioners? Okay, looking for a motion.
Oh, can I just ask one question?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me on what page it had the 2019, 2020, just so I could compare? Because I just went through and I didn't mark it.
I think it's page 17.
It is 17?
I think so.
I believe it's also page 3 too in the budget message.
Thank
so.
you. I just,
All right, commissioners, looking for a motion.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we adopt millage rate for the library at .3207.
Got a motion from Commissioner Kitchen.
Second.
No.
Commissioner Kennard, second by Commissioner Slayball. Is there any public discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Seeing none. Commissioner, Councilman, any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And we will recess until 8:45. Okay, we're gonna call to order the fire preliminary budget. With that, we'll do, we've already done the invocation and pledge. We'll go to roll call again.
This is a preliminary budget hearing for the Citrus County Fire Protection Special District Board this 28th day of July, 2021. In attendance are Chairman Scott Carnahan, First Vice Chairman Ronald D. Kitchen Jr., Second Vice Chairman Ruthie Schleba, Commissioners Jeff Kennard and Holly Davis, and County Administrator Randy Oliver.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, Randy?
Yes, this is the old voter-approved MSTU. There's a long history to this, and Denise and I need to get our heads together and figure out how to eliminate it. But the background on this is Inverness decided to create their own fire department, and as a result of that, this MSTU was one that covered multiple areas, including the city. So the county created a new one for the two purposes. One was to exclude the city because they weren't paying the same amount as the people in the county for fire services, number one. And number two is that to be able to provide medical services through paramedics and things like that, we had to have it broader. So there was another MSTU that was created to encompass that. That being his background, this MSTU is set at 0. Okay, because it's no longer needed. I do not know how to get rid of it, and Denise and I do need to figure that out. But we recommend that this one be set at 0.
Okay. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, who wouldn't want to make a motion to set the millage?
You know, I just gotta have it.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I got a motion by Commissioner Kitchen, second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, we'll close it. Commissioners, any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Now we go to what, the MSBU? What's that?
We're going to go to the regular workshop, but it's 13
Okay, all right.
minutes from
With
now.
that, we'll
Or the
recess.
regular meeting, I mean, at 9.
Recess until, okay, we're gonna call the order of the preliminary budget hearing to order. With that, we've already done the pledge and the pledge, so we'll go to roll call, please.
This is a preliminary budget of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners this 28th day of July, 2021. In attendance are Chairman Scott Carnahan, First Vice Chairman Ronald D. Kitchen Jr., Second Vice Chairman Ruthie Schleba, Commissioners Jeff Kennard and Holly Davis, and County Administrator Randy Oliver.
Thank you. And with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Oliver.
Yes, if we can start, this is the purpose of this meeting is to set the millage rate to be included in the trim notice that goes out to citizens that tells them what their proposed tax would be this year compared to what it was last year. It's put in the trim notice, and we have to trim a number of different millages. And we'll be providing 2 scenarios based on the direction of the board. The original direction through the workshop was to use rollback +3 plus FRS contributions and then new growth, obviously.
Okay.
And we'll go through that scenario. We'll also go through a scenario that holds the current millage constant.
Commissioners, anybody got any comments at this time?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make some general comments, but with respect to the constitutionals, I'll sit quietly while we hear their presentations. But just so you know, let me just say this. I want to apologize for some of, I'll put it this way, the 2 other gentlemen up here are used to working with me and my gruff approach to dealing with stuff. I think the 2 new commissioners, I might have shocked them with my, the way I come across. So I just want you to know that this is the time of year I look forward to. This is my favorite meeting of the whole year. I'm very passionate about this, but I got to tell you that I probably spent more time and more prayerful consideration over this budget than I have any in the last 7 years, okay? It's because the new commissioners, opened my eyes to some things. I looked at some stuff here, and things happened yesterday that I went home last night and made some changes in the way I thought just from the meeting we had yesterday. So I just tell you that because usually I come in here, those that know me, I have about 100 of these little green tickets here on my book, and because I go through every line, every page. This year I just have a couple, which is indicative of the excellent budget that's been prepared for us. So I'm just saying this now, Mr. Chair, so that everybody knows I don't intend to sit here and talk all day long like I have in the past. I have very few general comments to make, and I think people may be surprised with what I have to say today. But again, I'll wait until we hear the presentations, and then I'll say if that's okay with you.
That's fine. Any other comments? Okay, go ahead, Randy.
Yes, I would also note, as the clerk's scheduled for 9:10 to start her budget presentation, but as I always like to say, if it isn't in the budget, it isn't going to get done. Because during the year, we can't really alter, how our revenue works. The bulk of our revenue comes from property taxes, which is a little atypical for most counties. They have alternate revenue sources. So with that, let's start with the first slide till we get to 9:10, and then we will pause and let the clerk make her presentation, followed by the supervisor. Okay, this was the original scenario discussed at the preliminary budget workshop when we did we established the parameters that I previously noted. Our current millage is 7.8887. The millage with adding the 3%, the FRS, and accommodating the new growth would be 7.8588. Please note that that does include stormwater. We've proposed a stormwater MSBU. If that's adopted, that millage can either be rolled back to 0, or that millage can be allocated to general fund or something else, and we'll provide those scenarios later. Next slide. This is the total budget. It gets a little bit, this CARES and ARPA money confuses our budget a lot, so we tried to break it out separately. When you throw $34 million into our budget, that makes a significant difference. But we're within, we're about 0.03% less than we were before overall. Next slide. This shows the taxable values in Citrus County. As you can see, we bottomed out about 215. What's interesting is that we have a Save Our Homes initiative, and this year it went up 1.4%. okay, which means that values on homesteaded properties, and there are a lot of them in this county, only go up 1.4%. Overall, the actual value is greater than that. Those two values came very close to each other in 15 when the market went towards a downturn. Right now, it's going the opposite way, so you can have people that have the exact same house that are paying vastly different numbers because of that. But that shows what our taxable value increase were. On the county side, I don't know on the constitutionals because they're not required to provide those numbers. On the county side, you'll see that we have added personnel to provide those additional services that are required to meet the needs of those residents, and that's basically to what I call maintain the status quo. Next slide. This is the millage rate history. Okay, as you can see, from 13 to 14, it went up. That was because of the a couple of factors. It was the triple witching hour, I call it. Duke Power took the nuclear plant offline and put the value of that at essentially zero. The economy was in turmoil, and then while it wasn't a major impact here, were impacted slightly. Tourism in Florida fell off quite a bit because of the BP oil spill. So those were the three events. The millage was raised to 8.9999. It's been decreased in 2021 to 7.887. Your alternatives today are going to be to leave it at the 7.887 or reduce it to 7.8588. Next slide.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kenny.
Just editorial comment. I understand what's represented in the graph, but I've never bought into that trifecta of the perfect storm, because what we're told is Duke quit paying taxes, okay? Well, there was a discussion because the county wanted to play hardball with Duke, and so they said, okay, well, we'll fight it. Now, what that implies is they never paid taxes again. Well, we know that's not true. They continue to pay taxes, but the rate stayed up. So that's what people should be aware of, okay? There's a 31% tax increase on the citizens that year, and the reason was all these reasons were listed out, but in the end, once Duke started paying again, the tax rate didn't come down. I will point out the things Commissioner Carnahan and I are well of. What happened in 2014? There was an election. And one of the reasons there was an election was there was a 31% tax increase on the citizens, and they wanted to know when they were getting it back. So I'm just bringing that up for a little historical.
I looked at that and I watched it come right on down.
Yep.
And one other thing, if you recall, we have set up, we called it the Duke money, the $2.3 million. Essentially, that was the money that was generated by the new gas plant that coming online. So that money's kind of been set aside to do other necessary things in the county, but that would represent part of that money. Next slide. This basically just shows total budget by operating and reserves. As you see, we've continued to make strides to keep us financially prudent and show good management to the rating agencies and the other agencies that we report to. Next slide. This shows our reserves. As I say, you know, at the earlier point of the graph, our reserves were fairly low. Well, dangerously low, perhaps.
Right.
Okay, but it's been restored to a level that is well received within the financial community. Next slide. Again, this shows our general fund reserves. We had gotten down to 4.7. Our low part of the year for income is October, November, before we start collecting taxes. And I remember as a consultant, one of my concerns was that there was going to be a cash crunch, if you will. And if you see a government start issuing tax anticipation notes, affectionately referred to as TANs, that's the first sign of major trouble. But we have built those reserves over time back up to 14.1 million, which is, as I say, a prudent level of reserves. Next slide. Okay, this just shows what the average household currently pays. Okay, as you can see, if you're within the city of, if you're within either of the two cities, you pay a little bit of taxes. Inverness, it's currently based on last year, $633.04. Crystal River, it's $381.11, and those are for those additional services that people get for being in the cities. One of the things that I think our constituents, your constituents sometimes forget is we are not a city, we're a county. Okay, in a county, you don't provide the same level of service as a city. Cities provide higher levels of service and they charge according to the level of service they want to provide. As we've noted in the slide, however, Crystal Rivers proposed a 2.1 mil increase in their millage, increasing it from 4.8 to 6.9. Inverness has proposed a slight decrease of 0.1519, but that gives you the information. Since we're at the appointed hour, I think it would be appropriate if the clerk's ready for her to make her presentation.
Okay. Madam Clerk. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Still have that story in my head. It's really difficult. Yes, no kidding. Okay, we're all set. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and present the budget request for the Clerk of the Court. Some of you have seen this presentation before, but I wanted to ensure that we brought this little PowerPoint to as an assistance to the newer commissioners as well, just to help. It's a nice pictorial of the to help understand what services are provided by the clerk on behalf of the board, and to also expand your understanding of the oversight and role of the clerk as the internal auditor as well. Commissioner Kitchen actually suggested this presentation a few years ago, I think, and it really helps you to understand and see, where those services are placed. So, next slide. Our total budget request is $3,029,070, which is a 4.2% increase from our 2021 operating budget. That increase is primarily reflective of realignments of personnel to ensure that those that are performing board-related services are being paid for by the board. It includes our FRS increases, merit increases, promotions, and also an increase to our pay grade. Is it a 2%? Did we do a 2% increase to allow? We're slowly trying to work our way toward the $15 an hour increase that's going to be required in the near future. Our starting wage was $11 and change, and so we're well below the other constitutionals in our county. So we are making strides to remain competitive in that regard, but more so to make it less painful to transition to $15 an hour when that day arrives, when that day comes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Can I
Yes,
interrupt?
yes.
Just
You can.
a quick question,
Absolutely.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
I'm following along on page 31, just for those that are tracking it by page number.
Thank you.
And also, thanks for the page numbers once again. When we used to do this, we didn't have page numbers. So anyway, the budget number that's in the book that I'm working from is $3,007,810. If you go back to the previous slide, the first number is the same, and the last number is the same. The middle number on this is $544,605, and that's $565. So it's about a $21,000 difference in operating expenses.
I think, okay.
It doesn't include the 23-21, which is $21,260, what the board is required to fund for communications per Florida statute 29.008. So
So-
that is why you have a slight difference.
It's on page 34,
Page 34 now.
the communication.
So this number is included in that, so we have to combine our 2 pages to get her 1 page. Okay, good, that's all my only question was, thank you very much.
It's 2 different department numbers. It's budgeted out of 2 different department numbers, so. So just again to demonstrate in a list of what the services are, what services are provided by the clerk for the Board of County Commissioners and the citizens, of course. And this is just a list that demonstrates those services to show that return on investment. This is a statistical bar chart that shows the increases in the areas, different things, areas of operation in recording and accounts payable, purchasing, tax deeds. Next slide. Our Information Systems Division is responsible for not only providing assistance and support to the clerk of the court and other entities, but these are just some of the areas of operation that our the best IT division in the state of Florida, if not the entire world, provides for county services, operations of county commission. We are very thankful and pleased to be an award-winning county. I think you all know, most recently we received the Triple Crown, which is the award for the budget, outstanding excellence in the budget, which is really cool, as well as the annual financial report and the popular annual financial report. So this is your local government audits, and just to help an understanding, audits are conducted. The clerk gets audited 6 ways to Sunday just from a lot of different areas. But this is a picture that demonstrates some of the audits that take place. You have your financial statement audits, which is conducted by the external auditor, which is currently Moore Stevens Lovelace. That happens on an annual basis. The output of that particular audit is the annual financial report. That is a compiled report of all of your county operations in addition to your constitutional officers. And then there are internal audits that are conducted by the clerk of the court. I have an internal audit division. The board funds much of that division, and that responsibility per statute and per constitution is to be the auditor for the Board of County Commissioners. Those audits are selected on an annual basis. They are primarily performance operational compliance audits, and we present that list to the county administrator. We work in conjunction with the county administrator and other county divisions to conduct a risk assessment on an annual basis to determine those areas where those audits would be conducted. And you can go to the next one. The financial statement audits, and this again is what I just explained to you, it's conducted by an external auditor. It's the Board of County Commissioners as well as all of your constitutional officers, and it is a very broad scope audit. Audits are conducted on primarily a sampling methodology. And then these are the internal audits. This demonstrates to you those audits that are conducted by the clerk's internal audit division for the Board of County Commissioners and the clerk of the court. Now, we haven't really had the opportunity to do a lot of internal audits focused on clerk operations because we have been so busy conducting audits for the board. We are not authorized, as it's indicated there, to conduct audits of other constitutional officers unless we are specifically requested to audit something that is bound by an interlocal agreement or a memorandum of understanding or any other contractual relationship between the Board of County Commissioners and whatever constitutional officer that may be. Next slide. Is that it? That's all the excitement that we have this morning? Okay, all right, no music or anything. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the budget request of the clerk or anything on the slides, the slide presentation.
Commissioner Slayball.
Tracy, could I see the first slide where it breaks down your payroll and it's page 31 on us?
We don't have that. This is our presentation.
Okay, can I
We
see your
don't.
first slide then with the increase? Okay, there we are, okay. I think I need to look at this one. I think my eyes are going. Okay, so, just so I am getting this, again, new, the 2021, your personnel services is all your payroll, and that was the 2,014,077?
2 million one, are you talking about
For the
2021?
year 2021.
Was 2,142,082.
Okay,
2,142,082.
Okay. And,
I don't know what you're looking at.
so you're trying to get the payroll up, so it's about an 8% increase that you're having in your payroll.
Yes, and that
Okay.
includes FICA, Florida Retirement Insurance, and things like that.
Okay, so that's the average is what we're gonna be looking at 8% increase in most, in order to get up to the $14 or $15 an hour.
It's a start to
Okay.
get us there. It's
Okay.
not a complete jump.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, not a
Okay.
complete jump.
Commissioners, any other questions? Mr.
Sure.
Kitchen?
Yeah, and I guess to do that, I see there's a reduction in capital outlay. And so again, you stayed within the budget parameters. I think what the board's always said is, here's our budget parameters. We're not telling you how to do your job, you know, and you've done that again excellently. So again, Mr. Chair, makes our job easy when the constitutionals, we all work together and we come up with what we need to do. So I can support it.
Agree 100%. I can support it also. Commissioners, anything else?
Yeah, I did appreciate that because I was trying to figure that out
Okay.
and,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
my only comment on this, and I'm gonna support the budget request, is that I really wish that any one-time expenses, any capital outlay projects, that those are separated from the budget request. And my reasoning, we went through this last year, is that, you know, when we take this year's budget number of the 3,007,000 before the required 21,000, and that includes roughly $137,000 for capital outlay. I assume those are one-time costs, that next year, when we go to the budget parameters are 4 or 5%, that 4 or 5% increase is going to include that capital number that was a one-time purchase. That wasn't an actual budget, operating budget or operating expenses. So there's some additional money there that is getting the benefit of that 4 or 5% increase that doesn't necessarily have to be spent again. So I would like to see those things pulled out. It's not that we shouldn't be paying for them, but I don't think that capital outlay number should be subject to the annual increase of 4% or 3%, whatever the monies allow. So that's just a passing comment. I am gonna support it though. That's all.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
If I may respond, ours does not compound that.
Okay.
That number is removed. We started that practice a couple of years ago, and I don't think we've got that properly. I thought we were splitting this out so you could clearly see that those one-time purchases that we put in there, it doesn't compound. Am I correct, Tracy?
$30,000 for the replacement for the Minitrack softwares in CIP, which is
Okay.
one of the one-time capitals. So to that extent, I mean, I can't answer what else is maybe in that particular budget, but that item is broken out separately.
Okay. All
So
right.
we
Well,
had,
thank you. I didn't see that here.
That's okay.
a lot of the, what you're seeing are our technology upgrades and switching out of different computer equipment and stuff such as that. That's ongoing because we do a small section each year.
We do try to separate out any, like we have the, as Randy mentioned, the 30,000 for the agenda software upgrade. That was listed separately. However, working with DMB, we pulled that out and it is now showing in their capital improvement in 2140, I believe. Capital improvement, not in ours.
Okay.
So those were pulled out.
And if you look at page 32, you'll see where the 30,000 was in there, and then it was pulled out and put over to CIP.
Okay, yep.
And that's a very good point, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Kennard, because I align philosophically perfectly with that position. It should not be, it's padding your bottom line if you just don't show those things separately, those one-time items like that.
Okay,
Very
any other
good, thank
questions? Any other questions? All right, I'll be looking for a motion.
You want to, like, approve the clerk's budget, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'd make that motion, Mr. Chair, we approve the clerk's budget
got
and
a motion by
include it in our.
Commissioner
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Kennard. Any public comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, we'll close that. Commissioners, any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Okay. All right, do you want to go ahead and do the rest of the Constitution while we're at this?
Yes, I think that'd
All right.
be appropriate.
Colonel, you want to come next? I mean, do you have anything to say or no, or, I mean,
I'll see what slides pop up.
okay, so,
Mr. Chair?
yep,
Maybe I can save a little time. I'll just tell you what I think, and that goes back to what we talked about. In the years past, this was not always a smooth operation. I think the sheriff did exactly what
Yep.
we talked about.
Agree.
Stayed within our parameters. I think he submitted a budget that he gave to us time to go over, answered our questions, and I can support his budget
Okay.
as submitted.
okay, I'm saying.
I'll second.
Okay, so we got a motion, got a motion, motion by Commissioner Kitchen, second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, Commissioners, any comments?
Yeah, I do have a comment. In your employees, this is just a educational question. If you're short employees, like now you're short one, you said yesterday. If you're short, you still have to budget for them, even
Correct.
though you might not be putting that payroll out, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you short in any department significantly?
We're building back up, and I guess to refer back to yesterday, at one point, just in sworn law enforcement, we were extremely short. And it was extremely hard to get and hire personnel.
Right.
But
Oh,
due to,
no,
like,
I know.
great, today, private business is having the issue. But just the last I looked was yesterday, and we were like one down on sworn.
Okay.
Depending upon communications, that's always gonna fluctuate, but we're building back up from where we're supposed to be. So we're actually moving in the better direction than a lot of the other agencies are.
And are you down employees like at the 911 center or anything like that?
We're always gonna be down 1 or 2, 3, 4. It depends upon how it turns over.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank
Good
you.
deal. Nice and easy. All right,
A lot better than yesterday.
Supervisor of Elections. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for having me today. Good morning, Chair, good morning, Board. Thank you for seeing me here today to walk through some of these budget items and for all the help that you've been. Mr. Oliver has as well been as much help to help me prepare this budget. I'm going to quickly go through some of these items so that I don't want to hold you up. I know how busy you are, and I know that you've all had your eye on my budget, so. And thank you for that clarification, Commissioner Kennard. That does help me on the one-time purchases, because elections does have one-time purchases. We have a lot of ongoing software for the year, but it's not the initial purchase, so that's helpful. Thank you for that. Okay, We're going to talk about elections here and how elections and budgets work in a year. The perception is that we have elections every other year, even year, when we really have 1, 2, or 3 elections in every budget cycle because of the change of some legislation that has happened in the recent 3 or 4 years. In 2017-18, we had 2 elections. 2018-19, 1 election. 2020, we had 3 elections. 2021, the budget we're in right now, we have 1 election. And in 21-22, we'll have 2 elections, and so on. That's how it works. Elections always cross the budget cycles, okay, because of the law changes. Thank you. Major budget impacts for elections. The vote by mail date to mail out vote by mail ballots had a ripple effect on our budget. The vote by mail ballot mail out date moved from 30 to 40 days before an election. This law changed placed the cost of ordering and mailing all ballots for 2 elections in the same budget cycle. This makes the budget jump and decline at a much steeper pace than in past elections. So now all the ballots for the primary and the general election are ordered and mailed out in a primary budget. Okay, so that affects what we do. Okay, thank you. All elections are late August and early November, FYI. All elections are held in hurricane season. That's just a fun part of it. More than 1, 2, or 3 elections in a single budget cycle. No more grants available for the mandatory mail-out of sample ballots. That happened right before the 2020 elections, and that is a huge cost. Every year it was put in the budget that here we have this HAVA grant, Help America Vote Act grant, but when it disappears, it's gone. Well, it's gone now. No more grants are available. The election law changes, increase in voter registration. We've registered 3,083 voters. That's a 3% increase of new voters just since the November election. So I'm really excited. We're out in the community, but it is raising our numbers here, which raising our numbers raises election workers, raises precincts, early vote sites. In 2021, we had 120,175. That's a 13.7% increase since the last general election. That's a big increase. The other numbers are up there. I'll let you take a look at them. The biggest law changes that we had that are affecting our budget are the Spanish language in 2019, and right now we're sitting on Senate Bill 90, the election reform. The big change with the Spanish language lawsuit is that it's very ongoing, okay? The Spanish language lawsuit causes us to have 2 ballots in a general election, all right? That doubles the cost of elections. We're required by law to have a ballot that has English and Spanish on it. And when you have amendments, especially we're coming up to a governor year here, when a governor year, you tend to have more amendments on the ballot, and that causes you to go to more ballot cards. Now, the most ballot cards that we have ever budgeted for was 2. It could easily go to 3, which causes you to need more voting equipment. Okay, all this has a ripple effect on us. Senate Bill 90, the biggest thing in Senate Bill 90 is that they're requiring after an election that you dump all the vote by mail requests that you have in your system. Remember, in the general election of 2020, we mailed out over 49,000 vote by mail ballots. Okay, that vote by mail is the most cost-effective way to vote. I am a proponent of vote by mail, but when I have to dump all these and then have to pick them up before the next election, that's very painful. It's okay in Citrus County because we don't have a lot of elections in between, but counties like Pinellas County, they drop their requests off their system. They have 350,000 vote by mail requests, and the next month they have an election. So it's painful. The larger you are and the more you grow and the more elections you have, the more painful that can be. We had a lawsuit. One of many. I'm in the middle of 4 lawsuits right now that they're suing over Senate Bill 90, the League of Women Voters, NAACP, the Fair Vote Act, and the Harriet Truman. So we're always in lawsuits. One of the big ones that we had was a vote-by-mail ballot system. And the vote-by-mail ballot system requires that you have an independent way that voters can vote if they are blind online. So we've had to incorporate that in our budget. Is it a one-time thing? No, it's not. They charge the same amount of money every year for that system. Okay. What else affects the budget? The 2021 new election laws requiring online ballot retrieval system for the blind voters we just talked about. The 2019 Spanish language. It addresses the need to add more voting equipment with the increase of ballots per voter. The minimum wage increase for 400 election workers. Reapportionment and redistricting year for 2022. New voter cards, new precincts, new early vote sites, new boundary lines. Election, of course, are always in late August and early November, crossing budget cycles, which we talked about. The mid-2020 elections, the mail-out date for the vote-by-mail ballot changed from 30 to 40 days before the election, moving the purchase of ballots back to the primary budget year. The return postage for vote-by-mail ballots. The one good thing about that is people, the big thing out there was, oh, go hand your ballot in. So a lot of people handed their ballot in, so that wasn't nearly as much as we thought it was going to be. So we cut our budget in this budget cycle for as much return postage that we would need. The financial impact with the end of the HAVA grant, which paid for the mail-out of the sample ballots, which is required. The impact on the Spanish language. We talked about how it affects voting tabulators. Voting tabulators are the ones that we put out at the precincts and early vote sites. You walk up and put your ballot into the machine. When I have 2 ballot cards per voter, that means in these sites, I had to put 2 units in every site. We had 45 sites. I had 4 early voting sites with 8 machines at the early vote sites. I had 31 precincts, and I have 5 early vote precincts that are very large that I had to put these tabulators in. In the general of 2020, I didn't have a piece of equipment left on the shelf when we walked out the door, and it's time for us to have an end-of-life for our computers, and it's time for us to buy some more voting equipment. Piece by piece, you can buy a couple of pieces a year, but it's something that I need to keep in the budget every year. Okay, you can go to the next one. Thank you. Redistricting, the census, redistricting, reapportionment, creating new districts and new precincts. It's mapping cost right now. I'm setting on a $14,000 mapping cost for them to combine all our mapping layers for us. This is something that happens every 10 years. This is very familiar to me. This is my 4th census that I've been through and the 4th time I've done mapping in Citrus County. And it takes, there's a lot of components to that. We've been working on that since I've walked in the door. And one of the things you have to do is you have to get your map to accept 100% of the voters. Well, on last Friday, we have all voters but one that would map. And so working with the county GIS, working with our mapping vendors out of Tampa, we have accomplished that. And that was our goal to get there, so now we can move on for the new census blocks. On August the 15th, the census data should drop. We have all the boundary lines, but the census should drop. When the census numbers drop, we'll also be redistricting. That's when you'll have your numbers for the county commission school board districts. That's when those numbers will come out, and that's what will be important to you. And my ask of you is that you try to keep those lines lined up with the school board and come up with the same boundary lines. You're looking for the same thing. You're looking for the numbers to be fairly equal in all the districts. I know what the voting numbers are in each district, but I don't know what the census numbers are now because we have grown so much here in Citrus County. Another thing for the census, we have changed the boundary lines. We'll change all the legal descriptions. New precincts and early vote sites might have to happen. We're out there right now, and we are looking for new precinct buildings. We're hunting for new precinct buildings, and we're getting them lined up. We might have to have more election workers and additional electronic poll books and voting equipment. One thing that will happen is the district numbers will definitely change. Maybe this is the first census 10 years ago that we were put in one district, one House district, one Senate district, one congressional district. But that's never been before, and I don't expect it this time. So what happens here is at least the district numbers will change, and we will have to mail out all new voter registration cards, and we will have to align our mapping up, which all this information is in the budget as well. Thank you. Okay. Immediate changes. We immediately created an action plan to start the process to replace and virtualize all the servers in our office. It was an immediate need. All that has been taken care of, okay? All our servers are up. We have 3 new servers. We're all virtualized. And we did this through the grant process that we just got. We just received $141,000 for an elections grant. We created a database to track all the end of life of all our servers, our computers and laptops, and that is an ongoing thing, a small budget item that'll be in the budget every year so that we can continually replace the equipment that needs to be replaced. We're implementing 2 new systems right now. In 2022, the Clear Audit, which audits the tabulation system that was in our budget, this current budget, and the ADA vote by mail ballot retrieval system. Every year, we implement something new in elections, mostly because it's required by law. The legislation changes, and we're required to do it. The implementation of the Clear Audit is something that audits your entire election process. We have a tabulation system, but then we have a Clear Audit system, and they stand alone, both of them, and they audit your whole system. We're required by law to audit 1 race and 1 precinct. But now with Clear Audit, we can audit the entire election and every ballot that was put out there and counted. I worked with these folks. We did 8 election prototypes with them before they came out with this system. Now, this system has been in place. It's in a lot of counties in the state of Florida. We just couldn't afford it before now. And it was put in the budget to have done this year. And the pricing has come down to a point where it was much more affordable than it was before. Again, this is a one-time purchase, but we still have a yearly software license that would be due on this system. The ballot
Mr.
retrieval.
Chair,
Yeah,
I've got a
Commissioner
question.
Kennard.
So the audit system, we're required by law to audit 1 race in 1 district,
1 race, 1 precinct.
1 precinct. But what you're proposing is that we use this system to audit all races in all precincts?
It does the whole election. Yes, sir.
Okay. What's the difference in cost to the taxpayers to audit 1 race in 1 precinct versus all races in all precincts?
That's a great question, Commissioner Kennard. I have to hire about 20 people to come in and sort these ballots. They have to sort all the ballots, all the early vote ballots, all the vote by mail ballots, and I use all my staff, and we have to separate every ballot. And then after we separate them and we get them on shelves by precinct, by party, by style, by early voting, by vote by mail, by precinct, then we have to go back through them again because your hand, you have a human hand in that, okay? So all the payroll for that and all the time of that to do that. I would say probably 20-plus counties in Florida are running this system, okay? It's in my current, I'm not asking for that in the new budget. That's already in my current budget, okay, to do that. I can't tell you the dollar amount, but I can tell you that it audits the whole election. But here's one more thing that this does. This will also be able to, they're writing the rule at the state right now. This is a state-approved system in Florida. These folks actually went on and wrote a tabulation system. They don't sell it in Florida, but they sell it in other states. And we have, let's see, where is it going with this? Anyway, they have the, we're going to be able to use it for a recount, okay? Recounts are massive. They're hard. In 2018, I had 3 statewide recounts in 3 state races. That has never happened before, okay? Could it happen again? Yes. As races are getting closer and more people are voting, that happens. So we can use this system for that as well. And all we have to do is submit those reports instead of going through the whole process of recount.
All right. I would,
There's a one-time purchase fee of this.
Can I continue? So it's a one-time purchase.
It is.
That,
Like I said, it's not in this budget that we're asking right now. It's already in the budget that I'm working on right now. It's in the 2021 budget, not the
Okay.
21-22 budget.
okay.
Okay.
But we still don't know what that cost difference is between.
No, I don't know right offhand. I do not know. There's a
Okay.
one-time purchase fee of that system for $68,000, okay? And the payroll to pay everybody and to get that done is probably upwards in $20,000.
Okay. All right, so it's not in the budget that's before us today.
No, not at all. I just want to tell you where we're going and some of the things that we've been doing as we move forward in our immediate changes and things we're doing here.
Okay. Is there an ongoing cost to this?
Yes,
Okay.
of course, there's an ongoing software.
Okay. What's the ongoing cost for this in the budget that's before us today?
I would have to look it up. I don't have it right here in front of me. I want to say it's probably between 12 and 14,000. I don't have that number right here in my hand, but I want to say it's probably close to that.
Okay, so we've made the software purchase, so the cost in this year's budget to
Just the-
continue this. Are there, this seems like, seems to me, and maybe we just didn't ask enough questions last year, but
Okay.
if we're implementing a system that only a third of the counties, roughly a third, less than a third of the counties in the state have implemented, at a cost of $68,000. I wouldn't want to go backwards at this point, but I am interested in whether or not there are any of these other procedures or capital outlays capital expenses that we are implementing that isn't necessarily required by statute, or that is over and above what is required by state law.
I think as far as the audit's concerned, we're way past that, Commissioner Kennard, okay? Everybody is questioning elections and the turnout, okay? We are number one to be looked at for lawsuits, okay, and things we're doing and not doing. When we can lay down a report and say, here, this is the tabulation system and this is the clear audit. I started to tell you that we have audited this system for 8 elections. We did the prototype for this back starting in 2005. And then they've sold this system all over the place. We just couldn't afford it. You know, we have, I say 20 counties, could be more counties than that right now, but our larger counties have picked this up. Pinellas County just implemented, Hillsborough County. Now, we're not the first to implement it. It's been being implemented since it became, I think, 2008, 2010, okay? We just couldn't afford it because it was way out of our price range. So Susan put it in the budget for this year so that we could go ahead and implement this. This is a major impact on what we do, okay? It covers recounts and it covers the transparency of an election. I want to know that there's something wrong. Other people say, well, this happened, does that happen? You know, I know enough about tabulation systems that I know that they're safe, okay, and what we do is safe. But no, not everybody knows that, and it's required. Down the line, we will be expected to have full audits of the election, okay, and we'll be on target for that. I don't think this is a frivolous expense. I don't think it's an expense like, oh, wow, we're going way up and above everybody else. No, everybody else is trying to get on this board and get on this train and get this done. I'm thankful it was in the budget, okay? I only brought it to you so you would know what we were doing, okay? So you'd have an idea of what we're doing. The ongoing, yes, all our ongoing does have software expense, but it doesn't include a lot of changes that would affect us. The system is approved by the state, by the Division of Elections. The only thing that can be certified by the Division of Elections is a voting system, but this is approved along with that ballot retrieval system for the ADA voters, okay? And that says a lot about a system.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
and my last comment on this is I fully understand, and I don't mean to be confrontational about it,
No,
but
you're fine.
if there are roughly 20 counties that have this system, I would assume they're the larger, more affluent counties in the state. I would not consider us there yet. I think we're moving in a very good direction, but I wouldn't consider us there yet. There are roughly 46 other counties that I assume have audits, or assume are able to produce the necessary reports, because they're getting sued as well, along with every elections office in the state. I guess to use a phrase that our administrator has used many times, that I don't mind being on the cutting edge of technology. I don't want to be on the bloody edge of it.
Never do.
So let's don't try and lead the pack at unlimited expense, because we've got a very limited amount of revenue. So I'm going to support it at this point. You know,
Well, it's already in the goes, it's being
Pardon
implemented.
me.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to support it. We've already purchased the software. Now we're at the point of a $12,000 to $14,000 annual fee, so I'm going to support that as well.
Okay. All right, Commissioner, anything?
Yes, I'm sorry. Were you talking
Commissioner
I was
Davey?
just gonna say, I
Beth?
did the rough math in my head, and it sounds like it pays for, the initial cost pays for itself in 10 to 12 years, based on current needs for manual recounts and staffing. I was just doing your 12 to 14,000 annual cost for the software, and 20,000 your rough estimate of what it costs in manual recounts, correct?
The manual recounts are very expensive.
Yes, and I would assume they're only gonna get more expensive because of all the litigation and
Sure.
outrage about elections and the current, citizen mentality, so.
Commissioner Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I met with the supervisor a month or so back when she was doing this, and I'll be very candid. That's the way I always am with you guys. She said, well, you know, this doesn't include this, and this doesn't include this, and this doesn't include this, and we have all these issues coming up, so, you know, we may have to do this, you know, and I just said, put it in the budget. The last thing we want to deal with is emergency action that comes to us, you know, in February, and all of a sudden we're digging into reserves trying to pay for something. If you see this as something that's coming down the pike, if it doesn't, we don't have to spend it. It stays in there. As you know, we kind of segregated out, or I guess we still are, the supervisor's budget item is kind of what she doesn't use stays in there, right? I mean, that's kind of what we set up before. So I'm comfortable with that. I encouraged her, tell us now what you need, put it in there. So I guess I got to take some responsibility for telling her to make it bigger than what she originally asked for. But when she pointed these things out, I don't think people realized just that 10-day difference, what an effect that had on a budget cycle for when those were due. So for all those reasons, Mr. Chair, I can support this.
Okay.
Because I don't expect to see this as a reoccurring thing, you know, in the
Alrighty.
future, so.
Any other comments, Commissioners?
Are you done with your?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I'll wait then.
Okay.
We'll start to
Commissioner
wrap
Kennard,
this
I
up.
apologize for interrupting you. I didn't mean to interrupt
that's all
you.
right.
All right, let's start to wrap this one up.
So the other things that we're doing besides the clear audit and the ballot retrieval system is we've started a weekly outreach program, which is very helpful to get us out in the community, because we do have a lot more people moving to Citrus County. So that's been real helpful, and we inform the voters about the law changes. Okay, 13 items were submitted for a new no-match elections grant. All grant items were approved by the Department of State and the Department of Homeland Security. We received $147,000. New servers, software installed in the last 7 weeks. 8 of the items of the grant are completed, and the other 5 items are set for completion of payment prior to the November 15th, 2021. Next month is the installation of the Clear Audit system, and we're doing the audio visual as well as part of the Senate Bill 90 that was never finished when we started our building. Clear Audit will allow us to audit the entire election. Grants are high priority for our office. That helps keep our budget down to a constant change of the election world. Another priority is the voter education and outreach. We are out in the community at least once a week. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so here's our election security grant we just got. About 6 weeks ago, our grant opened up, and we were able to get the $140,000. Okay, we've spent $64,000 on the building. We've spent $63,000 on servers and $12,000 on some more security issues. Okay, we have election grants that we can bring to the table, and some of these election grants, they will cover as long as we can tie them back to security. And most of the stuff we can tie back to security. October 2019, we also spent $95,000 from an elections grant on the elections building, okay? We put in the warehouse, and we put in a whole new bay door at the expense of the SOE's grants. Okay, right now, the budget changes and impacts. The need for an ADA ramp to create an entrance and an exit for the early voting site, to replace the stairs with an ADA ramp. Right now, in our budget, that was something that Mr. Oliver had taken out of the budget, but he put some money into reserves. And the money that he put into reserves was a little over $30,000.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there because we've had this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and after talking to Randy, that money really can't be used because that's your true-up money. So, you know, that's true-up money, is that right, Randy?
That's money that would roll forward towards next year. If you remember, a couple years ago,
That money
Commissioner
can't be used.
Kitchen set an equalization account to try to take the spikes and dips out of elections, and that's part of
Correct.
that money.
And so that money should not be used, is that correct? And what the conversation was, is that money can be used, if we know we're getting the grant, then we can use that money and get it done by the September 15th and then put the money back in, correct?
If it can be funded out of the grant.
See, that's, you know, after our discussion, I had a discussion with Randy, so that money really cannot be used for that.
Okay, well, that's what Randy had told me.
Well, I
That
had
was
a
a
conversation
conversation,
with
and
Randy.
that's okay. He
So-
said if he didn't get
so-
the grant items,
So with that, I'm
My-
gonna tell you right up
my
front.
grant items,
With that, I'm gonna tell you right up front, I will not support spending $35,000, after discussion with Randy.
Okay.
I think this needs to be budgeted for next year. You know, we've had to spend a lot of money this year, and, so, you know, by talking to Randy and taking that 30,000, and doing that, then that's gonna do, there's no true-up money, so I couldn't support that.
okay, thank you. Anyway, for the ADA ramp here, to come out, we have an entrance and an exit. We have a safe survey that was completed by the Department of Homeland Security for our building. They came out prior to us moving into the building, they came out afterwards. And prior to moving into the building, they had suggested some security things that we had. And one of the items on this was to get an exit out of that building. The ramp on that building, the ADA ramp, they're doing some work on it this year, the one ramp that we do have, the one you see in the first picture there. They're gonna do some to level that off in the bottom. Can you go to the next picture? This is our early voting line for the general election. It was stayed that way pretty much all of the election. And we have voters, there's only one entrance to this building, and it's just that ADA ramp that you've seen in the prior picture. And these are the voters going into the ramp. They're in the middle of the parking lot, and they're coming and they're going up the ADA ramp. So anybody who has a disability of any sort is going to use that same ADA ramp to go into the building, and then the same voters are coming back out of that building. Not only is it a hazard to do that, okay, because if I have wheelchairs, you know our building is about 4+ feet off the ground. So all of our ADA ramps that we have in that building are very long, okay? They have to be to meet the requirements of ADA. We also do ADA surveys on all of our precincts and polling places with the Department of Justice. We're required to do that. And this ramp, using the same entrance and exit, you can't serve as many people. If I can put them out the back of the building on another ADA ramp that wraps around that building and comes back and meets this ramp, I can move these people through this quicker, especially when we're not trying to clear the ramp for people with disabilities coming down the ramp and going up the ramp. I think this is a needed change. I think this is for $34,000, $34,800. I think one of the things that we're doing here is I just don't want to see a lawsuit. They're looking for lawsuits for any reason to sue the elections office, and that would be a grand one, and I think that we need to take a look at that. Next one. These are some concerns that I have for next year's cycle, okay? Next year, we will have one election in 2023, followed by 3 elections in the following year. So you're going to see that big jump and big fall again in our elections. We haven't had a staff increase since 2006. This has been 15 years. The voter registration has increased from 98,000 to 120,000. Staffing is needed for the implementation of election systems, the law changes, vote by mail, ADA accessible, ballot software, clear audit, ballot on demand, and early vote sites, electronic poll books, election equipment, and express votes, Our need is not because of change in process, but added technology and software for our already taxed staff. On election time, our staff is, they're all managers of their own department, and we don't even have cross-trained people in some of these departments. Next budget year, we will have a $62,000 upgrade to our tabulation system, plus another high-speed scanner in the upwards of $125,000. We counted vote-by-mail ballots this year. Well, we had 2 ballots per voter. So instead of counting, 50,000 vote-by-mail ballots, we had to count 100,000. And it's the time frame that we have to count them in. We get those ballots back, and within 8 to 10 days, we have an election. And so those ballots have to be counted in that time frame. We come right up to that election, and one of the high-speed scanners broken. We were just far enough into the election, it was okay, but we can't have that, and with the increase of voter registration. This one I want to put on the table for you because I don't know who does this, I don't know how we should do this, but who is saving for a new tabulation system? It was a big deal when we bought this system, and that was in 2017. This will be over a $2 million purchase. We purchased the one we have right now, like I said, in 2017. The system is now 5 years old. I don't see us having to buy one for 5 years, okay, because there'll be upgrades and upgrades to this system. And I do like the way this vendor works. You replace pieces, okay? Right now, I was talking about the high-speed scanner. They were 850s is what they were called. They won't even sell 850s anymore. Now they're selling 950s, okay? Now, all this equipment does work together, okay? They do make it work together. But I just want to lay that on the table because that's a huge expenditure. And I don't want you to be surprised by that down the road when that has to be replaced.
All right, we about to wrap it up.
I have a question on the scanner, if I may, because your predecessor had one scanner, and I know, I think it was Commissioner Kitchen came to me, and in the prior year we now, I think, have 2. Because she wanted a backup. That's my recollection. Do you recall, Commissioner Kitchen?
I remember that type of discussion, yes.
You're right.
So there are 2 scanners, and my understanding was there's a primary scanner and an exact, there's a backup scanner, and both of them are identical, I thought. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct, but then the law changed, and then sent it for the Spanish language, and that's what created the 2 ballots per voter, causing us to have to, we had them both running the entire time, both of those scanners. So the law change caused us to have 2 scanners that we're using all the time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I've got a question about the new tabulation system. We just heard that we won't be expected to buy, or it's not expected to have to purchase a new one for another 5 years or so minimum. So should we be advising that there should be a certain portion of this in her budget each year, or is that something that the county should be budgeting for when this happens, and then we go ahead and make the purchase? Or how would that work? If we see that's on the horizon at some point.
Best approach is to set aside a certain amount of money every year, so when you get there, you got it.
Got it.
Okay,
In the CIP.
okay. Well, it sounds like that's something that should be on our radar. I mean, it's not for this budget cycle, but it should be for the next.
Okay, are you finished? Are we wrapping up?
Yes, if you had any questions, that's it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Randy, the ramp, the handicap ramp at the Meadowcrest building.
There are 3 ADA ramps into that area right now.
Yeah, I understand that. But what I want to know is if the Supervisor of Elections is made to get another polling place and the money to do that, and is it going to be more expensive to do that? And then also, she did bring up a good lawsuit, point about the lawsuit, because looking at those stairs, I went out there also and met, and I think that, some of the, American Rescue money be used for that ramp?
I can't answer that right off the top of my head on the American Rescue Plan. I will say that the original plan that was done by the architect had one ADA ramp into the supervisor area. You're required under the ADA to provide reasonable access. Okay, the prior supervisor added 2 additional ramps during the construction, so they're now 3. Okay, and there is a architect and/or engineer who sealed these drawings, so I'm fully confident that it complies with the requirements of the ADA laws.
I understand that. I'm just saying, if you ran the numbers of the possibilities of what could happen and a $35,000 ramp, what is the better business option?
I don't know the frequency of the traffic. For example, I can't answer was that the line before the poll opened? Was it during? I mean, I don't have enough data to make those decisions at this point or make recommendations based on that because I just don't have the information.
I just think in the grand scheme of things, if it, in the long run, could save money and be more convenient to the voters, $35,000 isn't, I know that we're stretching everything, but to me, maybe we could try to use some of the surplus money we've gotten from the federal government. It's not an unreasonable amount, and it would, that's my take on it.
Okay, Commissioner Kennard?
Randy, do you know, either you or Colleen, do you know roughly how much we have left in our contingency account?
I don't off the top of my head. Do you know? The general fund contingency for this year? I don't know the number.
Do we have 35,000 in there?
I don't know the number. I don't put out numbers I'm not sure of.
Okay. Well, I would support the budget that she's brought forward. If we've got 35,000 in our contingency fund, this is a county building, it's a public building, I would support spending the 35,000 out of our contingency fund to build the ramp.
We can look at that. I also don't know what our anticipated expenses may be through September 30 yet.
But anticipated expenses should be budgeted, right?
Yeah, but there are always things that aren't budgeted, and that's why we set up a contingency.
I understand, like an ADA ramp.
Mr. Chair?
Like the air conditioner at the jail.
We had like the air conditioner at the jail. That wasn't expected.
Oh, Commissioner Davis, sorry, go ahead.
I toured it, and yes, you already have 3 ADA ramps, and I think you could answer the question of when that photo was taken. Yes?
Yes, I can. That photo was taken, if you look at the photo, you can see it was done in the evening. So our busiest time is in the morning, when we first open early vote sites. This was ongoing through the whole general election, and those people are being dumped into that parking lot, okay? I think we need to take a look at the, not only the exit ramp, but how those folks are entering there. And the thing about it is, they're gonna come back to that ramp we have now, this money and calls budget, I believe, and they have to fix the whole bottom of that ramp because it doesn't meet the requirements, but the rest of the ramp does, the one that we have right now. That ramp goes to early voting room, okay? That's the only one that goes into early voting room. I might have 3 other ramps, but I'm 4.5 feet off the ground, so every entrance has to have that ADA ramp.
Okay.
Let me make your point
Okay.
for you, so just to hear another point of view on this. The election security is huge, and that whole building is set up with a lot of secure areas. So that is the room, and it needs an ingress and it needs an egress, and expecting that one door to do both is really being not responsible, as far as I'm concerned. So we do need a ramp there, a second ramp.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I had just 2 questions. Is the ramp in the budget in front of us right now?
I don't know.
No, it's not.
Randy
It's
took
not.
some stuff out of the budget, so I don't
So-
know what you're looking at.
Well, you should. You should know.
Well, I don't, because.
1,142,567 for 2440 account, and then we have another account that, the program and descriptions, which is the 7441 account, and that's at 822,958. Those are the numbers. So as we talked before, as I said, the number that's submitted to Randy should include all of your requirements. So you submitted that number to Randy. The number that's in front of us is minus the 35,000. Is that what we say now?
Yes.
Is that the only thing that's been eliminated from what she submitted to you?
No,
Dan?
sir. No, sir, it's not.
Well, there was some other stuff, but I don't think that those are the issue.
But this is the issue.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, if I can rephrase that then. So if if that ramp was restored, that's the end of the contentious discussion, right? Between what you've taken out and what you would like to have.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is a one-time thing, and there is significantly more than $34,000. I look at that number every time. I'm so filled with numbers for today, I don't remember it. But that's just one of our reserves, okay? Reserve for contingency is, if you look at what we've taken out of that already, it's the stuff that pops up, routinely that we go to and say, take it out of contingency. So, again, I would support it when we're looking at this kind of budget number, when we're talking about elections. And again, the staff made the right call. They don't think it should be in there. That's why it comes to us. So that's why you have to prevail. My only thing I'll say, Mr. Chair, is that we have an exemplary reputation when it comes to bending over backwards to do everything we can for voting and getting an accurate and quick result. And if this is a one-time expense and we have it in contingency, I would go along with Commissioner Kennard and say that that's where it should come from.
And I understand that, but what I'm saying, I'll support the budget that's in front of us now, but the 35,000 needs to come from another area to fix the ramp. But, I will vote yes on the budget that's in front of me, but I was just pointing out that reserve money did not need to be 30,000, that's the true up, and that did not need to be used. Now, you did apply for a grant, so you could get grant money, correct?
I have another grant
Yes.
that I'm going to apply for.
Okay, and if you get that grant, that's gonna pay for the ramp too, correct?
I can't tell you that. I can't tell you what they would,
Oh,
what
you
they
told-
would say.
okay.
I can't tell you
But
that.
anyway, I'll vote for the budget that's in front of me, and then.
Well,
if we
the
find
question
35
I've got is, I think I hear three of you saying you want to take it out of contingency or reserve fund from this year.
Yes. Mr.
Yes.
Chair, I would make that motion
I'll second it.
Okay, so the motion is,
to support the budgets that's in front of us and to pull the 35,000 out of contingency for this year.
that's fine.
And
Okay,
get the
we got a
ramp built.
motion, we got a second. Is there any public comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, commissioners, any other comments?
Yes, sir, I can support that because I think it does what you said.
Yes.
It's not taking that out of there. It's a separate expense, so I can support it
I
as
can do,
well.
yes. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, let's get on to ours.
Okay?
Each day, just
Let's go back to the slideshow if we may. Okay, next slide. This just shows you the county budget. It relates to where the money's coming from, if you will. And go on to the next slide. This shows you how it breaks down. Please note state mandates is almost $25 million. That includes Medicare. We pay that. That question came up, and we're working on something to try to help get additional funds for the hospitals to cover Medicare expenses from the federal government. Constitutionals are 40.09, so when you take out those two, and then you take out transfers, you take out reserves, the amount that actually is the county's budget is pretty small. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the constitutional officers. Obviously, as you see, the sheriff is the biggest portion of the constitutional officers, but that gives you a good idea. Please note that the tax collector and property appraiser are fee officers. Their budgets are approved by the state. We don't have anything to do with it. They take their money off the top like a credit card company does.
It's quite an analogy.
It's what they do, though. They get a percentage of the assessment and a percentage of what they collect. Okay, next slide. Remember, we have new growth. I don't know what the constitutionals include in theirs because they're not required to give us this information, but it's something that I would encourage they be asked about. Because I know on the last Supervisor of Elections, she said about not adding staff. Well, the purpose of the budget is when you have new growth, you add staff with that new growth. You don't do other things with it. And we are proposing to add these 6 ad valorem supported positions. One is an assistant county attorney, facilities management unit supervisor would be a working foreman, a park attendant, a planner, a purchasing and contract specialist. We are, as Colleen knows, we are blowing up downstairs with all of the procurement we're doing, particularly with the ARPA funds and the CARES funds. We have muddled our way thanks to Linda in purchasing, has done a phenomenal job. And then road maintenance, because we acquire more assets, we need more people. But we're proposing those there within the budget parameters laid out by the board. Next slide. Also proposing in enterprise funds. An enterprise fund is like a separate company. They generate their own money. Okay, so building generates their money through building fees, utilities generates their money through water and sewer. So we're proposing a building inspector 3 to keep up with it. I would note if building construction retracts, we will correspondingly have to reduce those positions. Utilities is got a lot of new accounts that are coming online because of the sewer expansion, and I expect that to continue. We need to keep up with that, so we're proposing to increase the enterprise fund and the special revenue supported positions 8 by 8 positions. Next slide.
Can we hold there for
Sure.
a second? Sure. Again, I have no problem with what you're proposing. I just want to make sure we have a clear understanding of where they are. Okay, if I'm looking at page 26 and 27, this is the summary of positions. It shows 6 in the general fund, and then it breaks out 1 for road and bridges, which I don't know where that was reflected on.
It's the road maintenance worker.
Okay, so the 6 increases 6 ad valorem. So is it 6 road and bridges is not included under that, or it is? I mean,
It's my bad, so this should have been updated. The current slide is correct, but we have an AV person that was, came in this year.
Approved mid-year.
Mid-year.
That was not included because we've already approved it this fiscal year.
okay. Then again, this also relates to the sheriff's budget, no big deal, but I'd like to just have some clarification. On page 27, we talk about the sheriff's budget in Crystal River, and it talks about City of Crystal River. It shows a 1-person reduction, but in the sheriff's proposal for Crystal River on page 84, it shows the same number of positions.
I can't answer for the sheriff's budget. They're not even required to give us, they're only required by law to give us 5 numbers, and
I know what they're required to give us. That's all. My only question is, are you reducing the number of people in Crystal River, as one page says, or are you keeping it the same as another page says? And again, I guess that's Crystal River's question, not necessarily ours. I'm just curious, because Commissioner Schlabach brought up the issue about empty
I'd have to
positions.
see.
Okay.
I believe when the Crystal River agreement was originally done last year, they were expecting to have an increase of 1, but then after they did the negotiation, it went back down. So our summary report should probably say 12 instead of the 13.
Okay, so their report, or their breakdown on page 84 that says 12, that's correct.
Yes.
So our summary should say 12 as well then. Okay, thank you. So I can take that green tag off now.
Wait, can you leave that green tag?
Well done,
Can I-
Colonel.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Kishen, can you leave
Yeah,
that green
yeah,
tag?
well, all I was pointing out is on page 84, it showed that the number of positions in Crystal River stayed the same, but on page 27, it showed the number of positions in Crystal River was being reduced by 1. Okay?
Can I say something to him? I actually brought this up this morning, and I said, is it any of our business, should I be, and because when I saw that, it made me dig, which, you know, I'm a researcher, and then I went to the Crystal River contract, and your contract is for 10 employees. So I'm like, okay, is it 10, is it 11, is it 12, is it, what is the number, and is it my problem? Is it our problem?
I would say it is, because
Okay.
this is, we fund the sheriff department. We fund what the sheriff puts in the Crystal River, and it's up to Crystal River then to compensate him for what he puts in. But he comes to us for the funding for it. So, again, if Crystal River wants 15 or 20 or 30 deputies, that's their business. I just want to know, does it reflect the same number in our budget as what Crystal River is showing in theirs? That's all my question was about.
And I would hope they do the same thing that we do. We increase positions as needed with the new growth money. And I can't tell you that because we don't get that type of
But they're
information.
fixing to get a lot of new growth money. 25% tax hike, they'll be able to.
So, if I could just try to process this. So, in our budget to the sheriff, there's 12 people, 12 employees. But Crystal River's contract says 10, so are we paying for 2 more employees that aren't there?
The expenditures that exactly match the revenues that are coming in, so we won't give them any more. So the 2 must be something that they agreed to maybe partially fund, I'm not sure, but the revenue that we receive exactly matches the expenditures that are paid out.
Okay,
They offset each other.
okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair?
Go, you have 4. Go.
Commissioner Slabaugh, now you'll know why I like our finance department so much. I mean, we ask questions and the answers are there, you know, so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, constitutional officers, we've talked about the clerk. As Commissioner Kennard said, there's a one-time purchase of $30,000 to replace the Minitrack software. Was within budget parameter 4.2. If you consider the one-time purchase, they were at 5.2. Next slide. Supervisor of Elections was up 19.6%. 15.3% of that was state law changes. And so the total budget for the supervisor of election for 21-22 is almost $2 million. Next slide. Judicial services is down. This is because there were some computer replacements and things that were done in the previous year. Next slide. Property appraiser, as I say, they're at 3.9, but their budget is controlled by the Department of Revenue at the state level. We don't have anything to do with it. This is just informational. Next slide. Sheriff's Office came in at 4.4, which was under the 4.5 parameter that was given to them. We would note that the city law enforcement, and again, this doesn't compare levels of service, but this is for both cities combined, went up 4%. Next slide. The agency budgets went down by 1/10, as you're aware, and maybe not aware for the new commissioners. The board made a decision back in 2015 to phase out the community agencies. They didn't feel it was appropriate to fund community agencies with taxpayer dollars, that if a person wanted to give money to an agency, that they could do that directly. And so the board had a policy that they would reduce those by 5% a year till they were eliminated, and we have continued with that methodology. It also, last year, you had a one-time payment of $250,000. My understanding is that that got somehow admitted in last year's state budget, but you gave LifeStream $250,000 as a one-time number to compensate and help them meet that shortfall. So those are the changes and reductions in there. Next slide. Board budgets. Administration, this shows the numbers and the increases. Please note that we did this last year create the communications or PIO department, and that's the primary shift in that. as I say, the Board of County Commissioners, that cost is up 55%. That includes projected salary increases because the state bases commission salaries based on population, changes in FRS, and sundry items. Communications, we moved the public information this public information office. Please note that we moved one position, the webmaster, over from IT over to the public information office to try to make the web a little more user-friendly. It requires some technical expertise, but we want to make sure. County administration's down 57,000, and then county attorney is an increase for the new position of 94,000. Next slide.
Mr. Kitchen.
Mr. Alva, you said 55%, it's 55,000, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
55,000. I'm
So
sorry.
so I would point out, and this is an interesting anomaly, I think I know the answer to it, but if you look on page 116, it says executive salaries, this year is supposed to be 391, and the proposed budget is 340. So salaries went down. I believe that's because of the number of pay periods in the budget year. Is that not correct? Is that what we're looking at, or is there another reason for it?
When it did the projected, Doug's, it was just easier to throw his up into your number instead of separating Doug's out, so.
So,
I just-
so that's where the,
That's the
different-
problem.
Well, we knew this.
right,
You see regular salaries is 0, so his is all
okay.
piled up
right,
into yours,
okay.
so.
Next slide.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is visitor convention, utility, and business license. Shows the changes in those particular categories. Visitor convention bureau balance is 60%, or their target fund budget is 60% as reserves. So the reserve account increased in that particular area. Next slide. Community services, next slide, this includes administration, community services, ground maintenance, extension, housing, all the things that fall under Maricel's group. The total on that's 4.3%, again within budget parameter. This is the community services on the special revenue funds. Yeah, the special revenue funds, and includes the reserves and transfers. I would note that we have accommodated the debt service for the animal shelter, which was directed by the board. Next slide. This is the library taxing district, which you discussed earlier. Next slide. Fire rescue, next slide. This shows the increases in costs, and that we would know we're still working with the overtime issues relating to the personnel, but it also includes a plan to get to the $15 an hour in 2026 for all of our employees, both fire and the others. We have a transition plan, so we're implementing it basically 1/5 per year to get there, because I don't want to get to last minute. We have to be at 11, I think it's $11 this year in the bar.
Yeah.
I think it's 11 this year. And we will be at the $11 a year, but we are still working on those negotiations too. We've not completed them. Next slide.
Yep.
Growth management, okay, personnel, they're at 5%. As I said, we're proposed to add the one position in that particular area, planner. Next slide. Okay, next slide. I don't think at this point, but it's going to come out of the, based on board direction before, we have not budgeted for the interchange management stuff because that was too late in the process. But that's going to come out of the Economic Development Fund based upon what recommendation former Commissioner Wooten made to the board. Next slide. Public Works. Okay, there's capital is the big change, and it depends. on what's being done year to year. I would note we put $3 million in there for road resurfacing this year. So that's considered. Next slide. These are the enterprise funds within Public Works. Again, Public Works. Next slide. Public Works, these are special revenue funds. This is Aquatics, Beverly Hills, MSBU. Citrus Springs, MSBU, 491 widening loan proceeds, fishing improvement, gas taxes, and road impact fees. Next slide. Water resources. The biggie on this is what varies by capital. This is going to change wildly over the next couple of years because of all of the federal money coming in. But we just amend the budget as we go forward and as we get the grants and we know what the projects are. I mean, we've outlined them, but I can't specifically budget for them because I don't know what the costs are yet. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Other. My favorite. This is GIS, Human Resources Management, and Budget and Systems Management. Next slide. The biggest reason that one was down was we did the one shift from IT over to PIO on the webmaster. Okay, as you can see, the line at the bottom totally distorts everything on that slide with all that federal money being infused. Next slide. Again, these are our debt service funds, our street lighting districts, which are self-supporting. We calculated based on what's needed to keep those going. And then impact fees can change significantly one way or another. Depends on the economy and also depends on interest rates. Next slide. Okay, millage discussion. This is your part of the decision process. Okay, the first column, the option 1, was what I gathered as the consensus, which was rollback plus 3% plus FRS plus new growth. That would bring us at 7.8588, and if you all implemented the stormwater stormwater MSBU, you could reduce that an additional 0.0965. Okay, and that would be one option. The second option that I was asked to run was to keep the millage separate, and in doing that, I took the stormwater amount plus the little bit that was a difference between rolling it back and what the millage was under the prior formula, and put it into the general fund millage. Please note under this scenario, though, that if you don't implement the stormwater utility, we're going to need that money that was rolled into the top line.
I'm going to stop you right there. I do plan to move forward with the stormwater, and if we do move forward with the stormwater MSBU, that needs to go away, because if we don't take that away, then we're just charging the residents double, and that is wrong to do. And I will not vote for doing that, because all you're doing is hitting them double, and that is not why we did the MSBU stormwater. We did that to eliminate that, and so if we vote for that, we're going to hear a lot of grief, and there's no way I'm going to attack them twice on something.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, Commissioner.
I would concur. I mean, the analysis that I looked at here showed what the, over and over, it says if we eliminate the stormwater millage, it's about 1/10 of a mill. And I can support that. So I'm looking at the 2021 millage of 7.8588 with a reduction of a half a mil, right?
Correct.
Which would take it to 7.75. So all you're saying is you want to move that 1 mil from stormwater back up to the general fund, so we still come back to 7.8588. Is that what you're? And
Commissioner Kitchen, what page are you on?
I'm on this one. I'm looking at page 3.
And again, that's why we went to the MSBU, because that was the fairest way for everybody to pay. And again, that tenth should drop off. I mean, that's just double taxation, and I am definitely against that.
Yeah, I would have to concur, Mr. Chair, because if you're telling us that we need 7.8588, which is, I guess, option millage 1, and that's what you're telling us we need, and if we reduce the stormwater millage by that .09, or call it a tenth of a mil, but we're picking it up elsewhere in the separate stormwater fund, we're still, if we take it off of 1, then that millage should drop. And if, we shouldn't be charging it in both places. We shouldn't be keeping it in both areas. So, again, I guess you'd have to explain to me why Commissioner, or Chairman Carnahan's position is wrong.
May I speak?
Yes.
First, I have a question for you, Randy, at the very top of page 3. I have not been able to replicate the number of 31,000 increase in the budget if you take away the ARPA and CARES Act. I'm getting a number more like 106,000.
Yep. So if you look at page 2, the very last paragraph.
Yep.
Take the 358 million, less the 324 million. You're gonna get like,
I'm looking at page 17.
page 17.
So I'm coming up with 106,000 as the difference, pre-CARES and ARPA funds.
Well, you asked about the 31, so what we did is we took the 29 million from the ARPA and the 5 million from CARES. And if you back that out of the difference between the proposed and current, that's where you get the 31,000, which is on page 3.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to match up with page 17. But be that as it may, it's not a big increase in the budget when you take out those two.
Oh, so on
those two
page
grand amounts.
17, the 34,000, 34 million, 325.
Yeah, I'm looking
Okay.
at the blue line above that, 324, 138, 176, 324, 032, 112. There's a net increase of 106,064. Or decrease, sorry. So I'm just a little confused on that part, but be that as it may, it's a small increase or decrease over the last year's budget when you take out those grant funds. I have a larger issue I'd like to talk about, and why I would support holding the millage the same. 31 years in corporate America, I know you guys get tired of me hearing me say this, but since this meeting's being recorded, I'm gonna say that. My experience has been management always wants bigger teams. You always want to add more employees to your team. And I'm in the incredibly uncomfortable position after 8 months in government public service of looking at this county and seeing that they actually put most corporations to shame on running a really lean, tight ship here. You guys do a marvelous job. So I'm going to praise our government. I'm going to praise our staff for an outstanding budget. I'm going to praise the commissioners that were here and Randy, although he just left the building, for bringing us through the housing crash and the Duke debacle. Kudos to all of that. I want to talk about a potential new thought process going forward. We have the challenges that we are facing. There's many, 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 many challenges that we're facing. I'm just going to throw out 3 examples. Randy, you missed me praising you. The old and ongoing one is road resurfacing. We have yet to even remotely get in front of that issue. A new and rising, newish and rising one is cybersecurity. And I see that if you go to systems management, they requested 14 employees and we're giving them 13, going down by 1. Not sure, and, you know, I'm just gonna throw out some examples. I'm not saying any of these are wrong decisions. I'm looking at the total, you know me, I'm strategic planner, I'm up here. We are behind, and it's a newly exigent issue that we have to deal with, is the Suncoast and the rapid growth that's going on. I look around this county, I grew up here, I love it. We are still beautiful, but we're beautiful because we have a lot of vacant land. If we don't get ahead of this on a real comprehensive plan using modern standards, and especially for the 3 interchange management areas, but throughout the county, then we're gonna grow up to be Wesley Chapel. We're gonna have heavy traffic and we're gonna be ugly. And that's not what I want to leave behind for, I don't have any grandchildren or children, but for my friends who have those to leave the county to. So here's some numbers. It all comes down to numbers. And I've run a lot of budgets, presented a lot of budgets, been on both sides of things, and I always use a smell test on stuff. Kind of a common sense thing. So Growth Management Department in the administrator's message to us said that we had 15,000 permits in calendar year 2020. We are on track for 19,000 in calendar year 2021, a 26.7 increase in a single year. So that goes far-reaching beyond just growth management. That means the county staff that is already running, as I've praised, really, really lean, is going to be running past red line, trying to serve our citizens. So that's a smell test for me. The staff requested a 3.8% over 2 years in, I'm now looking at staffing positions, which is on page 26 and 27. They requested 3.8% additional staff over the last 2 years, so over 1920. And quite frankly, they know better than to ask for more. They know, they probably, most of the staff shares our overall citizen allegiance to keeping taxes low and running a lean ship. So they're not gonna be the people that I talked about in corporate America that are always trying to pad their teams. Admin recommended 1.3% growth over 2 years versus the 3.8 that staff asked for their various departments. I'll go ahead and grab the third rail. The sheriff, this mayor, you know, he may not need, this isn't the criteria for the sheriff's department to hit the state average. The criteria is what we need to do the job. But it is the smell test. They would have to add 18% to their sworn officers just to hit the state average. So that dovetailed with the traffic fatalities, the speeding that I see, the bad behaviors in the county. We might need some more sworn officers, maybe not 18% more, probably not, but we need to consider that. The Supervisor of Elections brought up a really good point. Since 2006, that department has not had any increase in staff. We've had a 22.4% increase in voters. How does that make sense? None of this is passing the smell test for me. So my feeling is that we need to leave the millage the same. We might be able to reduce it before the budget goes forward, but for now, we cannot go higher than what we set today. So I would ask for your consideration for that, and I'm done.
Okay.
I have
Okay,
something.
Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, very well done. I am with you. I have a question about the stormwater though, because if we take that percentage off and we don't pass the stormwater MSBU, we can't put that back. That's what's making me a little nervous.
I would like to address the stormwater if I could. To my mind, we are never going to tax citizens twice. We are not going to take stormwater money in 2 places. We might want to use that millage for something else, but again, that would be clearly defined that there is an increase in services due to an increase in population and an increase in challenges. So,
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, you can.
Just on that, and all good points. My understanding was, based on our previous discussion, that we are going to approve the stormwater MSBU. So in my mind, that was already a given. Where the budget message says, if we adopt it, we can reduce it. Well, in my mind, we are adopting it. We agreed that we would. And so in my mind, that's already been taken out. That's the way I've seen it. I think what Commissioner Davis, and correct me if I'm wrong, is she says, well, we've already calculated that millage rate. Maybe you can take it out, but keep that millage rate the same, which will give us additional revenue for additional people. I think that's what she's proposing. Now, just one thing I want to bring up. Why is all the offices in Lecanto empty? Does anybody know? Or not all of them, but a large majority of them. Because during the 2014 year, I believe there was between 100 and some employees that were let go. Okay? So the county was smaller. We had more than 100 employees, more than what we have now. Has anybody missed the reduction in service? The most amazing thing to me was when all those employees were let go, nobody missed anything. Okay? So it's easy to say the state average is this and the state average is that, because you're coming back to, let's include Miami-Dade, let's include Fort Lauderdale. Those, they have a whole different demographics, a whole different crime situation. So I always come back to say, we tell the sheriff, tell us what you need to do your job and keep the citizens safe. And he comes back and we tell him, this is what we can afford, you do it within there. This whole thing about, I answer your question about the smell test as it relates to efficiency. One of the first things Randy did when he got here was refund a lot of bonds, saved us millions and millions of dollars. Had nothing, he didn't have to hire more people to do that. So to me, in corporate America, I have to say, I ran a business that my small business budget was bigger than the city of Crystal River's budget at the time. So it's not about corporate America being efficient, it's about small business being efficient. And I think when citizens hire small business people, they're looking for small business efficiency, they're not looking at corporate efficiency. So all those points are well made. I'm just saying that it's like anything else. Staff grew and grew and grew in Citrus County over the years because everybody was trying to be like everybody else, and the city said enough. And I thought the proof was when people had to go because the county was broke, and there was no other choice. And when those people left, the other people picked up the slack. And I've always been, especially in my business operations, have been, I would rather pay less people more and have better people and pay them more, this to increase the number of people, because then you're diluting the payroll cap, so to speak, if you want to talk about sports, analogies. And so that's where I come back to. I mean, and it's funny because I thought I was going to make a huge compromise today by agreeing to the proposed budget. And I just have to say again, Commissioner Davis, all due respect, I'm ready to fall on my sword this morning and acquiesce to a lot of things, but I won't acquiesce to keeping the millage the same and increasing other fees and then hiring more people to do that. I just can't support that.
Commissioner Slabaugh?
So, if we take away the .0974,
7465.
okay, sorry, 6.5. And I didn't look at it that the stormwater, yes, we said move forward, we were gonna do it, but is there a final step to that? Am I missing a process?
Yes, there's a final step to that. There's a public hearing, and as I've mentioned to each of you privately, you're probably going to get some citizens that are going to attend that hearing because it's going to be an MSBU. I would expect a hearing, how many people are going to be there, I can't answer. Fire had a number of people that participated in that hearing. From my vantage point, it's a safer bet to levy it as it is, and then once you implement it, you can roll it back. Remember, this is the maximum rate you can set. Okay, but remember, if you pass the MSBU and you can't use the stormwater money for other purposes. So the alternative 2 puts that into the general fund if you all believe that there's an overarching need for additional services that citizens want and are willing to pay for.
Okay?
Mr. Chair?
So, sorry. So, what I'm hearing, and that's why I'm uneasy about it, taking it away right now, I agree with your point, but if 3 of us don't stay strong during the public hearing and it doesn't pass, we're screwed.
Well, I'll tell you now, this one's staying strong. Listen, they can pack this room, they can pack it out there. We did something earlier to do that, and now we're starting to falter a little bit. But again, with that being said, I'm staying strong on stormwater and SBU, yes.
I just want us all to make sure we're not presupposing something.
Thank you. And again, I'm staying strong on that, what we did earlier. It's a more equitable way to pay for it, and that almost tenth of a mil needs to be gone. Because that's, again, to say it's not double taxation, it says stormwater, people are paying for stormwater, MSU stormwater, that is double if you keep it.
But
Go ahead.
You're saying that they're paying for it, gonna be paying for it twice, but right now, today, as we look at this, they're paying for it once.
And if we vote for
No,
the second.
today,
Hold on,
this budget.
hold on.
I have the floor. That they're paying one time, and I understand the 2-time, but that is a future scenario right now. That's why I'm uneasy.
Go ahead, Commissioner Kitchen.
Yeah, I mean, great comments, great discussion, and I believe you're right on point. Here's where we get to. It's gonna be a public hearing. I know what the attorney's dancing all around, and Randy's dancing all around, and these guys are very, they have a lot of finesse when they're doing it. So really what it comes down to is we, as a board, at public hearings, all of us said, go forward with the MSBU. Advertise it, send it out, and tell people they're going to be mad, and let's get them in here, because when they show up, we're going to tell them why we're doing it. We all said that. What Randy's saying is if 3 of us cave, that's not going to happen. So I think what he's saying is that if you go back and say, you're not gonna cave, and then if you do, then he's stuck, because then he doesn't have the money he needs. But the problem I have is you've already sent him a bill for the stormwater, and then you're gonna send him a bill with the increased millage that includes the stormwater. So you are sending them a bill with the promise that if you adopt one, you'll cut the other one back. And see, then that kind of gives us a position of saying, oh, see, we heard you were going to take it off, when all along we could do that from the very beginning. So to me, it's just a matter, board, are you going to tax them where you show, or put an MSBU on or whatever, and show them what they're paying for when they pay for it, or are you going to bury it in the general fund where you can use it for something else? The reason I recall that we said we wanted an MSBU is we wanted it for stormwater. So I thought that was the reason we had the big debate and big discussion about, again, I wasn't a fan of it, but I felt it was the thing to do, the right thing to do, and that's why I went along with it. So that's where you get into problems. As soon as, we've seen this all along. We see it when we equalize the water rates. We have, it was outrage about it, but if you're doing what you think is the best thing to do. So it still comes back to this slide. I think that if you're going to adopt the stormwater MSBU, which we have given instructions to move forward with, even though we haven't had the final hearing, then it shouldn't be in here. That's where my argument is. So, Commissioner Slabaugh, what you're saying is exactly right, but what you're telling the public is you're gonna get them mad twice for something they should probably only be mad once for.
So could you take me through the calendar events of the public hearing and the final
Okay.
adoption of budget and all that?
Okay, the calendar events, do you recall when the stormwater MSBU public hearing is?
Same day.
It's the same, okay, it's the same day. Okay, the purpose of this meeting is to set the maximum tentative millage. So whatever number you pick today, you cannot exceed, but you can reduce it. So if you set it at 9, for example, you can reduce it to 8, or whatever you deem is appropriate. But once you make that determination today, your hands are tied. Okay, the dilemma to us, and what Denise and I, as Commissioner Kitchen said, danced around, is the fact that we probably both seen boards that have been very enthusiastic about doing something, and then the public expresses their thoughts, and they're not quite as enthusiastic, and it isn't adopted. And if it isn't adopted and you drop out the stormwater millage today, then we don't have any money to do stormwater, and I've got to do certain of those things, so we could be lacking funds to do that. Under option 2, it puts it into the general fund, and I can use general fund money for stormwater, so I can do that, okay, and you can roll that one back, and it depends which way you want to go, but if you want to do other things with the stormwater money, then it can't be in stormwater, because I can't do anything other than stormwater-related activities with stormwater funding.
Okay, so you didn't really give me the calendar of events, but the way I think of it, and you all dance around and you are doing great, I'm a bull in a china shop, and I'm saying, I believe that if the calendar lines up, and I am gonna support option 2, because I'm not as confident in some of you, all of us, in being strong. And so I don't want to take that chance. And so it's like cutting my hair. If I cut my hair off, I have to wait till it grows out, and I can't put it back on. If we take something away, we can't put it back on. But if we leave it at something, we can take away.
That's correct. Please note that if you put it in the general fund, however, it does impact the 2 cities, where the stormwater does not impact the 2 cities, because that's a TU on the unincorporated areas only.
Well, you should have led
Hold
with
on,
that.
Jeff, you done?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Kennard?
Yeah, I would support going ahead and pulling the stormwater off. We've spent $100,000
There you
of
go.
taxpayers' money to send out a notice saying this is what we're going to do. I don't see any reason to keep it on there.
Commissioner Kennard just hit it on the head. You voted as a commissioner to spend $100,000 to send this out. So if you don't go forward with it, you just wasted $100,000 of tax money. That's where I'm at with it, and he's spot on, so
And
I'm
none
gonna
of,
spot it.
no board members have ever changed their mind.
Not on stuff like that.
Okay.
Commissioner Kitchen.
And here's my problem. I don't ever remember talking about option 2. It's not in our budget book. If we're gonna have options up there, we should have had option 3, which would be option 1 with removing the stormwater and not adding it back to the general fund. That's what was presented, because it says in book, page 3, 7.8588, and then it says, please note this millage can be eliminated, which was the half a mil. That I have down here would take us to 7.7. That's what I was talking about. That's what I've been looking at all along. There was never an option 2 in any of the budget information that came before us until today. So that's where I have the problem, folks. So what I was prepared to go with was, and to me, this is a big deal, and we haven't even gotten to the end of it because I haven't given you my rationale behind it. I was prepared to go with option 1 and take off the stormwater, which gives us a millage of 7.7, gives us what we need for the general fund, it gives us what we need for stormwater. And again, I think that's a compromise, because that is not complete full rollback. It does address all these things in here. And let me also say this, folks. The reason I was going to do this is because there's things in this that I didn't support, I wasn't going to support, and I've decided that I will, because there's been a tremendous amount of effort that went into this, and I see this as a big collaborative effort here, and our staff has done an absolute fabulous job over these things. So if I may, Mr. Chair, I'll just give you one quick point. If you guys look at page 19, and it talks about the year, tentative millage, taxes, et cetera. Let's look at 2015 as the base year for obvious reasons. Final valuation was $7,856,000,000, okay? And taxes were $69,000,000, $971,000. I'm using rough numbers. And the budget, the net budget really doesn't count because net budget includes reserves, includes buying utilities, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you look at 2022, the budget we're in right now, our final valuation is 11 billion, so that's up from 7.8 billion. And actually, that works out to be about 3,387 million, so on. That's a 43% increase in valuation. Okay, you guys following me? If you look at taxes, in 2015, that was 69,900,000, let's call it 70 million. And this year, we are at $87 million. That's an increase of $17 million. So in an increased valuation of 43%, we've only increased taxes, intake of taxes, okay, not tax rates, but the actual intake of taxes for government to work with by 24%. So if you look at numbers that way, that tells me, because the question I always came up with, Mr. Chairman, is people said, when do I get my 31% tax increase back? When do I get my 30, remember that? And as far as I'm concerned, we've done that, okay? As property values have gone up, and everybody argues, and I've always said this, if more people move here, we need more services. Those new people, that new growth pays for those services. Just because my house went up in valuation, I don't need any more services because my house value went up. If I build a bigger house, it might. So there is no true correlation between property value as far as the services that it requires and the tax rate that we charge, okay? That's always been my point. If the citizens want more firemen, they want more firemen. If they want more police officers, they're willing to pay for it, great. But my final point here, folks, is that we have done an excellent job over the years of holding the line when it comes to the net taxes that are collected into the county by less than what the net value, the final valuation is. If you all are following me, and if you got page 19, that's a perfect example. So that's what I was going to say. And if I can, let me just go ahead and wrap up, Mr. Chair, what I was going to say, and then we can fight it out however you want to. I do have one question, if I may inquire about the animal shelter. On page, let's see, on page 463, under interest and principal on capital improvement, it doesn't identify there where the interest and principal on the 7.5 million loan on the animal shelter is. I know it's other places in the budget, but when I was looking at the is that not been programmed into capital improvement, but it has been just as expenses, or, you see what I'm talking about? Page 463.
Debt service is included, I know.
Okay.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 463.
Okay.
It shows the 2414 bonds, the 24B bonds for the
Okay,
phone,
yeah.
Meadowcrest. See that? Emergency savings, EOC, but it doesn't show the animal shelter.
We put that under the animal shelter. Yeah, do you know what page?
So it's a separate category under the animal shelter for their separate capital improvements. Okay. So here's the other thing, Mr. Chair. We talk about the budget includes 7.5 million for an animal shelter. Well, it's not a 7.5 million, it's 10 million or 11 million, or depending on what we borrow. So my final thing I'll say about this is that let's just be true to the citizens of how much of their tax money is going to go into building an animal shelter, and it's not 7.5 million, because it doesn't include the interest charge. So that's why I asked, and I'll be the one that takes the credit. I was the person that asked for the amortization schedule that shows that. So with that said, and I'm just telling you folks, this was a lot for me to deal with, but I know how much of you push forward for the animal shelter. I agree it's something we're going to have to do. I did not agree that with the way it was being done, but that's the way it was done, and if I'm going to be a team player, I have to deal with that. But I tell you what really changed my mind on all this was yesterday, when we sold some surplus property. And when it was pointed out, where's that money supposed to go? Okay? And when that happened, I went, aha, okay, they mean this. They're going to put that money into a fund, and that's going to pay it down. And I believe that. I know, because I won't be here. I'm done after the next year. So when this gets built, that's my way of saying I trust you guys. I will support this budget, which includes, Commissioner Slabaugh, you're locked in, which includes supporting the new animal shelter that's in this budget based on that. But I can't do that and vote for a tax increase. I can't do it. I mean, the reason I could support it the way it's presented, Mr. Chairman, is the animal shelter is included in this budget without the tax increase. And I can't do both. I can't support that for all those reasons given and do that. Again, if you think we need more people, that needs to be in each department's budget next year. But let's go back and ask what those over 100 people, and for some reason, it seems like that's a bigger number to me, but I picked 100 because I thought it was a small number. Probably some folks in the audience remember the number, but, so anyway, that's what I have to say. I will support when we get to it, the millage rate that's on this page minus the 0.965.
And I also will support your position there, Commissioner Davis.
Slayball, thank
Slayball,
you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, and that was big of you, and I appreciate that. And I know that this has been a struggle. I didn't really understand what you meant by you didn't like how it happened, but
Would you like me to explain that?
I will, I do. But if, this is how I look at this, and I look at it differently than all of you all. If we had built yes, of course, the animal shelters in 20 years, it's gonna end up with interest costing 10 million. That's the way mortgages work in the real world. If we had built this shelter 10 years ago, we could have saved $3 million, ballpark. If we wait, it might cost us more than the additional $3 million. And so that's how I look at it. We take the bullet now, or we take a bigger bullet later. But it has to be done, and it's painful, and nobody wants that. That's why I have been working my hiney off getting donations, and I got another $100,000 donation. So I think you see the work that I'm even doing to try to help the taxpayers. But I also feel like if we're always just scraping by and we can't get roads paved in a timely system, then what good is taking off the 0.0965? If we are not meeting our obligations, that's not how you need to run things. And that's how I look at it. So, and I understand that, yes, you want to take that away, but I want you to hear me. I don't feel comfortable taking it away until something is legitimately written that, yes, this was passed. And I need you to hear that, because there is that possibility. You keep sighing and laughing and saying that I'm there, but I don't know that you're there, and I don't have that security. So that's why I feel so strongly in not taking it away today. Thank
Commissioner
you.
Kennard, I'll let you go, then I'll wrap it up.
Well, Commissioner Slabaugh, I completely understand your point. And I came in here today with similar thoughts. However, where I'm at with this is that if we want to have increased revenue for road resurfacing, then that needs to be put into the budget. That point needs to be argued for why we're increasing property taxes to increase the budget for road resurfacing. That argument needs to be made during the budgeting process. I don't think that it is completely transparent to say, well, we're going to take away the stormwater 0.0965, but we're going to just push it over here in the general revenue, and that'll give us $1 million. We can do what we want to with it. So my suggestion, or I should say, I'm going to go along with what Commissioner Kitchen and Commissioner Carnahan have suggested. I will make the motion that we take the 7.8887 minus the .0965. I think that gives us a millage rate. Is that right?
So you're going with,
Let me read it into the record when you get to that point when,
I would take our current millage rate minus the .0965.
right.
so you're saying take 7,887 and subtract
no.
.0965?
No, you say not taking out option, I'm hearing taking out option one.
No, he
Nope,
said 7, 8,
he's saying
8,
two.
7.
That's not what I said.
Our current millage rate, total millage rate, minus the .0965.
Okay, that's option two, then that's not where I'm at then, okay.
I need some clarification, Mr. Chair, because Commissioner Kennard said he supports my position. My position was what was given to us in the book, which was option one, with the 0965 removed. That's, because this whole budget that's in front of us was based on option one. Okay, that's what
I
that's-
apologize, I misunderstood. I will
Okay, that's
support that.
Wait, can
Okay.
you show me where, can you show me that in
What's-
here? You said that option one was, what you just said, can you show it to me on page
Yes,
17?
page 17. Look
I
at,
can probably clarify this.
Go ahead.
In my meeting with Randy last week, I was quite upset to find out that the entire budget has been built around a rollback plus the few things, because I have never once stated that I was okay with that. Nobody ever asked me specifically where my head was on that, and I am new to the budget process. I thought that's what we do today. We can go down from here, but we cannot go up. And so I came in here wanting to set it at the current millage rate. I agree that we should, I am for option two. I can compromise quite easily by saying, let's take off whatever the stormwater was that was added back to general fund, yes. I'm okay with option two with the deletion of the .0965 that's up in the general fund. But I'll vote against anything
Okay.
else.
Okay.
And, by the way, Crystal River just had to raise their millage rate tremendously. And we are going to be in the same position with this county because we are falling further and further behind, especially on road resurfacing and other infrastructure.
I wanted, I'm gonna come back to you. Y'all keep going to road resurfacing. Commissioner Kennard hit it dead on the head, okay? If you guys wanted to do this, then you should have advocated for more money in road resurfacing. There's no more money in road resurfacing than there was last year, unless we find some money and we put it in there. Okay, so we've been going through this budget process, and I haven't changed anything. So if you wanted to advocate for road resurfacing, okay, in 2014 there was no road resurfacing. Well, Randy, we found $12 million to put in there. Okay, and we're doing $3 million a year. Okay, so again, I am for option one minus the stormwater. That's where I'm at.
Chair, is the motion still on the table? Because I didn't hear a second.
well, I think Randy's going to tell us what the numbers is, and that's what we'll have to deal with. I think that's.
All right, Commissioner
A
Kidd.
minute or two ago, I was very clear on what I thought the majority of you want. I'm
let me-
less clear now.
Oh, let me let Commissioner Kennard clarify where he's at, and then I want to comment on it.
I would take option one, the 7.8588 minus the .0965.
And I'll second that.
Okay,
That, by my calculation, that gets us to 7.7623.
And I will second that.
Chair, I asked for a 5-minute recess. Can I have that?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a recess?
Can I respond to your comment before you run off? When you said how I was about the process, when I told you all I wanted to look at different data for the animal shelter, and you said no. Okay, when you said you wouldn't go out and get numbers or allow staff to bring back numbers to rebuild the current animal shelter, and when you said no to that, you shut down one of the avenues that I was looking to try to exclude to get to where you guys got to.
Oh, you mean as a board, we said no?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
all. I'm
okay.
not,
I-
I'm never
oh, I'm
talking
sorry.
about people personally up
Okay,
here. I'm
no,
always
I'm just
saying,
trying-
you
I
know.
wanna make sure.
Yeah, no, as a board, and I'll go along with it. I just want you to be clear that, that's where that was. I'll save my rest till you get back, so.
All right, you got a 5-minute recess.
support this budget, and I gotta tell you, it's because of the work of the commissioners, advocating your positions, and the fact that we're not balanced. You know, I always come back to when the citizens overwhelmingly told me they wanted more firemen. And I said, Randy told me this is how much your taxes have to go up to pay for those firemen, and they said, fine, we'll do that. And everyone I told that to, I could give them a number. The problem I had with the animal shelters, every time I asked for a number, nobody knew. You know, is it 8 million, 10 million, 12 million? We still don't know, really, because it hasn't been designed. But it's the commitment to move forward with it, and I trust you guys in the future are gonna do the right thing. So, to me, today, this vote is a vote of trust in the future of the county, okay? I won't be here, I won't, and I know some of you are gonna be very happy about that, but I just wanna say, Mr. Chair, that I think it was an overall great effort, and the end product I can support.
Okay, Commissioner Davis.
To use Commissioner Kennard's term, I'm gonna take one more bite at the apple.
Look at me while she does.
We desperately need to look ahead. We were in a position where we had to cut, and I agree and appreciate that we lost 100 or so employees, and everything kept motoring along. So obviously, there was a lot of fat that needed to get cut. I also agree with you to pay more for less people, absolutely. But my feeling is, and I got this advice very early on after taking office from multiple commissioners, was to essentially set it and forget it. Figure out a good millage that would, over time, allow you to do things like build an animal shelter without debt, build a new courthouse without debt, without having to do these up and downs in a political battle day in and day out. That being said, if this goes down in flames, which it seems to be, it will, at least from my and Commissioner Slayball's perspective, I really look forward to you putting sales tax on the agenda.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Anytime you want to put it on the agenda, Randy, I'll bring it up and we'll talk about it.
All right, any other comments? Commissioner Slayball.
You know, it's been brought up for 7 months that we're new. So if you're saying that if we wanted more money for road resurfacing, we should have put that on there. Well, when was I to put this on there?
Exactly.
Oh, real quick. Y'all meet with the administrator quite often, and if that was a concern of yours, you should have been voicing your concerns to the administrator like the rest of us do. I mean, that's what I would have done. And I said, hey, Randy, I believe this needs to happen, so give me another option with putting $4 million or $5 million in road resurfacing, and then how's that gonna affect the millage? I mean, that's what I do when I meet with them.
May I address that? We are new commissioners, and we have to learn from the people around us, including our administrator, and including only when we're sitting up here with y'all, because we can't talk to you outside of the dais. And I did lose a lot of confidence in the process after all of this was presented to me, and nobody had ever asked my opinion on this. And from day one, I have been talking about future planning. I've been talking about 20, 30, 40 years out. Long after I'm dead, I want the decisions that I push for and I make today to be the right ones for the county, for the citizens that are going to follow me. And I was never asked that, so I was quite upset last week when this was presented to me because it's been told to me all along that we can go down, but we can't go up. Okay, so I'm willing to go down from what I am pushing for right now later in the process. I thought this was the point when I start really advocating for things. And so, fine, we'll do it next year because I'm gonna know better. But there is a problem in the process, I'm just telling you.
You might think there's a problem, but here's what I can tell you is when we took office in 2014, what was the millage? 8.9?
Yeah.
Okay, we've got it down now to 7.7. And when we increase surface, we're road paving. So to sit up here and say, well, we're cheap, we're not cheap because we're actually giving a lot more service. We're getting roads paved. We've done a lot of good stuff, and we continue to do good stuff, and our millage is down. So those commissioners that were here probably got voted out because it was 8.9.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
May I? Excellent question. But from both of you, really, and this, I'm going to try to give you my answer, and that is, this is the system, okay? When we were elected the first time in November, and when Randy came on board in November, we inherited a budget. We had to deal with the budget that was
I
in
was right
place, right? So, because the budget's adopted in October and commissioners come in November. So the first year is always up and down. Where I see this happening is we had a preliminary, was it June? We had a preliminary, what do we call it, budget direction meeting or whatever. That's at that time. Again, you guys might have a different picture of this.
Budget workshop.
Budget workshop, when Randy says, tell me your parameters for the budget, okay? And I think what he keeps saying is he heard the majority of the board, not everybody, he heard the majority of the board say, this is the direction we want to go, okay? He never says, the board is unanimous, but what I'm hearing from the board is at least 3 of you are saying this. And I think what he heard is at least 3 of us were saying no tax increase, rollback plus 3%. That's why you kept hearing it. He didn't say he didn't hear you. What he heard is the majority of the board said this. For next year, to follow up on your question, you need to start saying right now, like you're doing, I want this considered in next year's budget, because then you're going to have a year of listening to the constituents out in the community tell you what they think, okay? The reason that I've always voted against the new animal shelter is because that's what my constituents told me. They flat out said, no $3 million for an animal shelter. We are to the point now where we need one, okay? And even though I didn't get my in-depth dive for it, we got it. But I would just say this to you, that the questions you ask are great. When does it happen? How does it happen? And this is the process, because I sat here and went through the same thing. Why do we have a proposal for an animal shelter in front of me? I never voted for it, but the majority of the board did, okay? So that's kind of the way this all rolls out. So next year, if our priority or your priority is roads or expanding a department or whatever, I think every meeting, every chance you get, you got to say this, I want this in the budget. I want to talk about this at budget time, and that's how it gets done. So again,
My turn.
I know it's a short period of time, but don't feel bad about that, because that's what happens to everybody kind of when you get into this system. So, again, I've lost a lot of votes on these kind of things, but that's where we get back to the majority is. It's not that people aren't paying attention, it's just you have to get out there, so.
Mr. Slayball, we're gonna wrap this thing up.
Well, and I think my response, Chair, is that you said I should have been asking for that money. Well, I did express that, but there's 5 of us on the board, and it's told to us, to me, in my meetings, I have to work with 5 of you. But if 3 are very loud and say, I don't want that, then my wishes or thoughts aren't expressed on, they're not there. It gets, I don't, like you said, you wanted something with the shelter, and you felt like you were told no. Well, guess what? We've been told no a lot. So your one no is 15 of my no's, and I'm sorry that you feel that way, but you know, I have to move on. But I did say, this is what we want. We're at a 75-year cycle, honestly, with roads, right? And so we're not getting stuff done, and citizens say to me constantly, I want my road repaved. My district has so many terrible roads, and I'm sure everybody's does, but I have to sit and listen to the same person tell me 3-4 times a meeting that the roads in my district are terrible. And so I would like to get to not roll back or do whatever you want to call it and take away the stormwater until I'm secure that, yes, that's been passed. And I'm just asking you to please go with me on that.
Okay. Commissioner Davis?
I'm going to bring up a perfect example of what she's talking about. When we were going through, all of us dragging each other through the knothole on the animal shelter, the 2 gentlemen, you 2, wanted different things than what the rest of us seemed to be going to. Ultimately, the staff had to come back with multiple options. I just wanted my option, which apparently was also Commissioner Schlabach's option, explored in the book. I wanted to have that in there. I wanted to have a fair shot at it. Instead, now I'm being told this is so late in the process, no, we can't do anything. Well, we're not adopting it until September. So that is the big issue there. And I will also say, from an economic development standpoint, when you drive through a county that has roads that are in poor shape, we don't look like a thriving community. And so repaving the roads on an accelerated basis is extremely important for many reasons, not just citizens, but myself, again, as a strategic planner and economic sort of person, economic development, that would make a big difference. And I'll be fine, I will readdress this next year, but, I just want to be heard on this because we are going in the wrong direction.
Okay. Commissioner Kennard.
Yeah, my suggestion, if we're going to address road resurfacing, which we need to, I agree, let's either put it on the agenda as a regular agenda item, or consider doing a special meeting about it, and we can hash it all out then, and ultimately come to a decision as to whether or not it is something that we're going to address at all, or if we're going to address it through ad valorem taxes, or if we're going to move forward with a sales tax initiative and putting that out there on the ballot. I think that would be the time we come to a conclusion at that time. And if the board decides to move forward with it as something that we want included in that we're going to pay for this through ad valorem taxes, then that would go on next year's budget, that you guys decided you want X amount of dollars for road resurfacing. You were told it'd take this much of a millage rate increase, so this is where we're at. And that's how the budget would come to us then next year. So that would be my suggestion. I completely agree with what Commissioner Kitchen, his point in that if you put it on ad valorem taxes, the tourists share in none of that. If it ends up as a sales tax, local option sales tax, which, we all know would be very difficult to pass, not impossible. But last I heard was that the tourists would pay roughly 26% of that. That's a pretty significant chunk of it that would not have to be borne by the residents of the county.
Okay.
And all residents of the county would share in it, would share in helping to repave the
I have
roads.
one super short,
Okay.
I'm just gonna say that from a financial responsibility standpoint, or a strategic standpoint, a sales tax is way better than ad valorem to
Absolutely.
take care of roads.
Oh, I
Absolutely.
agree.
I've been
And-
told over and over and over again that this county won't vote for it.
Well, let me tell you why the county won't vote for it. Because when you just throw it on, we're gonna use it for this, and then we can do whatever we want with it. It's always open-ended. There's never, we're gonna put it on there and it's gonna be used directly for paving roads. That's how it gets passed in Marion County. And I'm gonna tell you, it's a 2-year campaign to get out there and do it. And the commissioners can't do it. It's gotta be a grassroots effort. You have to get the leaders in the community to take the bull by the horn and get that campaign going. Because a penny for Pinellas has been passed, at one time it's been passing for how many years now? Because they've taken the money and they've done what they said they were gonna do with it. So I believe if we get a group of leaders out there that will take the bull by the horn, they'll put billboards up, hey, if we pass this, this is gonna get paved. If we pass this, this is gonna get done. And I think that if you put the confidence out there to people on what you're gonna do with the money, and you can't leave it open-ended. It's gotta be, this is what we're gonna do for the money. So, and I think that will pass. Commissioner Slayball.
Okay, I'm gonna say this, please hear me. The reason we're doing the stormwater MSBU is so that everyone pays, correct?
More equitable.
But if we take away that 1/10, we're taking away Crystal River and Inverness paying for stormwater.
Crystal River and Inverness have their own NPDES permits. They have to take care of stormwater themselves
Right,
according
but
to the law.
but they're not participating.
They are
in
not,
this.
they don't participate in the current MSTU, no.
And if it gets moved up to the general fund,
Then they participate in that. Anything the general funds assessed
so
countywide.
technically, the rest of the county, the unincorporated, isn't paying double, they're paying 2/3.
Whatever the
No,
pro rata
no, it'd be,
portion of the population is about 10%.
it'd be 1/3.
Well, the population of Inverness is about 7,500, the population of Crystal River is about 3,500,
So what's the fraction?
a little over 10%. Incorporated cities represent 10 or 11% of our
Just
population.
a thought.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll have a roll call vote, please.
And, could you please repeat the motion of what we're voting, what's the amount?
Motion to adopt option 1 for the recommended millage of 7.8588, deducting the stormwater millage of 0.0965 to set the millage at 7.7623.
Yep. And I'll have a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Kennard?
Aye.
Carnahan?
Aye.
Kitchen?
Aye.
Schleba?
Nay.
Davis?
Passes 3-2. And we are adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's right, we're not adjourned.
Wait a second, we got a couple formalities
I
we gotta
forgot
take care of.
about that, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Based on the direction that you've given us, we needed a motion to approve and authorize staff to execute various trim compliance forms. The DR 4205 Certificate of Taxable Value, the DR 420 MM-Ps, Maximum Millage Levy Calculation Preliminary Disclosure, and the DR 420 TIFs as it relates to the tax increment adjustment worksheets.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any public comments? Ms. Lynn? Oh, you want to come up and make a comment? Okay. Is there any public comments? Seeing none, commissioners, any comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed 5-0.
And the first tentative budget hearing is September the 9th, and the second one is September the 28th.
Okay.
That's the final budget hearing.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Is
Commissioner
the
Kitchen.
Thursday one, is that the September 9th? Isn't that the same day of the stormwater hearing as well? I believe one's like at
believe so.
1:30 in the afternoon, the other one's like at 5:01. So that was other question Commissioner Slabaugh had, is what was the timing of that? So the trim notices actually go out?
It's too late, we took the vote.
No. What I'm trying to get to is where we're gonna go from here, because people are gonna get their trim notices, and your phone will start ringing, and it'll ring, and if you thought $2 increase caused a lot of commotion, wait until the trim notices, because we all up here are gonna get blamed for this 2 mil increase in Crystal River, because people are gonna get that. They're gonna be calling, wanting to know why their tax bill went sky high. Any other taxing authority is on our trim notice, so I'm just pointing out, be prepared to actually know what it is that we're gonna be inundated with, and then after the budget hearings, then we'll see what
The
happens.
trim notice, however, will show 0 under stormwater, so it'll be a reduction, but it will show the actual increase in the MSBU depending on what's on your property.
Right, and they've already received that notice, right?
They've already, they should have received the written letter by now, yes.
Okay, that was all I had to say.
All right, anything else?
Stormwater is before
The hearing is.
Okay, the first one, so we'll know that we all either held the ground or didn't before we adopt the budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, you can't,
Yeah,
you're
you
locked
can't go back.
in
You're
now.
locked in? That's right.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we're adjourned.